We are live. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to everybody in the chat. Peace to all those that are watching. I am currently here with Darren G, who I will allow him to introduce himself in a minute. Good evening, the Blacklist. Good evening, Dream Team. So today we are here to discuss the current riots and protests that have been going on in Liverpool, Kirkby to be specific. Which was sparked off by allegedly a 25-year-old migrant who approached a 15-year-old girl, schoolgirl at that, asking for her number, and also illegal immigrants being housed in hotels, which has angered the people of Liverpool, especially when we're in an economic crisis. So without further ado, I will allow Darren G to introduce himself, and hopefully we can have a good discussion.
Well, I'm Darren G, mate, from the city of Liverpool, born and bred, real Scouser. I promote a message of Calnach UK, which tries to influence the kids to stay away from gang culture, drug dealing, and prison.
Good stuff. So, are you from Kirkby, or are you like from around that area? Because I don't really know Liverpool. I only know Toxteth and I know Merseyside. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Liverpool's not that big. Liverpool's it's only quite a small city, to be honest. So a 20-minute drive can get you from one end to the other.
Right. So it's a very small city.
Yeah, it's a close-knit city. Everyone knows each other and stuff.
So what's the sort of history behind Liverpool? Because from what I know, there's like a dock, right? So they do a lot of
Liverpool's history is built on immigration.
Right.
So when you start referring to the intended peaceful process on the 10th of this month outside Knowsley Sweets in Kirkby, you know, the intention was to have a peaceful protest. But as always, Merseyside police like to use a level of strong arm tactics, and that what instigated the peaceful protest to turn into a quite violent protest.
Right. Because I think it's important to understand the background of Liverpool, because again, media representation always loves to over exaggerate things. Because I'm not going to lie, a lot of the headlines that I've been seeing is far right extremists, neo-Nazi extremists on the streets of Liverpool. But from like you said, Liverpool actually has a strong history of immigration and people integrating. So would you say that some of these headlines are very misleading about Liverpool?
Definitely misleading. That protest was nothing to do with other people's race, religion, culture, whatever. It's nothing to do with that. What you don't know if you're from the city of Liverpool is that there has been numerous upon numerous accounts of illegal immigrants, red-blooded males, approaching young girls, women, stalking them, doing sexual gestures towards them. These individuals are loitering around schools, they're loitering around the local parks. You know, there's a lot of women, a lot of mothers, a lot of fathers that will be getting very agitated by the presence of these individuals that are terrifying their children. And that's what the protest was about.
Fair enough. And I think, to be honest, anybody that's got an issue with that maybe have to look into themselves, you know, because I don't think any parent or any decent human being would want to live in a society where their children are being harassed and being targeted by any sort of predator. Where I sort of have a viewpoint in this situation is that there are outside forces with their own biases and their own prejudice who will definitely try to capitalize of a situation like this to justify their biases and their prejudice. And this is usually people from the far right end of the spectrum of politics. So how do you differentiate between the two, you know, so that you yourself don't get mixed up in this? And the reason why I say this, I'm not saying that you are from that wavelength, but I think people that are not educated on these matters, they can't differentiate between a genuine concerned citizen and a far right racist. So how do you differentiate between the two?
Well, how would I do that is, for example, you've got movements or had movements within this country that would stigmatise and target certain groups of individuals, whether they're Brothers of Islam, whether they're Pakistani men, whether they're this, that, or the other. That protest was nothing to do with anyone targeting anyone due to their culture, the colour of their skin, or their religion.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot put me or many others in the same context as you could do, let's say, Tommy Robinson. Now, that's how you differentiate us from them. You've got an individual like Tommy Robinson who screams as high as he can about Islam and Muslim people and Pakistani men and these and that and this. We speak about sex offenders, paedophiles, protecting the children of our city. That's what we're about. We're no big movement. We're just family men, brothers, sisters, all coming together and going, right, the police are not putting the numbers into this to prevent this from getting worse. When you go across the social media platforms in Liverpool, you have got schools sending messages out to mothers going, we've had an incident today where a man has approached a teenager, tried to pull her away. And these aren't one or two incidents. You know, everyone seems to be putting it down to this 25-year-old man that approached a 15-year-old girl. That's just one of many incidents that's been going on in the last few months since these hotels have been filled up with illegal immigrants. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. The reason why I'm sorry I'm faffing around on here is because I'm trying to pull up the footage just to give people context. So I'm not ignoring you or anything. I'm just trying to get the video. So what you're saying, because again, it's very hard to get a true representation of what's going on the ground because of the misleading media attention. So you're saying that it's not simply based off of that issue. It has been a reoccurring issue of migrant men approaching young schoolgirls.
Illegal migrant men. Now, you've got to keep on reiterating that these are illegal migrants that are coming into the country without the right documentation, the majority of which have not been criminally checked. No one knows the history. So they're coming in and they're acting like a normal paedophile you'd get in your community. And that normal paedophile would be attacked exactly the same, if not worse, as all these illegal immigrants that are acting like paedophiles. As you know, you've got Liverpool is built on the back of immigration, and we've always welcomed immigration into the city of Liverpool. And it doesn't matter what your creed, your colour, or your religion is. You know, if we had 10,000 women and children fleeing from Syria or Iraq and residing in Liverpool, they'll be embraced with open arms. But that's not what you've got here. We've got thousands of men that are entering the country through the back door. We don't know where they come from. The majority, or let's say a handful of these men that is representing the thousands of these men up and down the country, not just in Liverpool, are patrolling the streets at certain times in certain areas, which is predominantly school areas or public park areas, and they are stalking women and children. In some occasions, they're trying to take them away. Now, we've got a high tolerance level in Liverpool for certain things, and we put up with a lot of bullshit before we start screaming about that bullshit. And what's gone on, you know, it's not just that one incident of that young girl being approached by that 25-year-old man. There is numerous incidents in public parks, outside schools, in the city centres, where you've got grown men stalking young girls, walking them down until they're petrified, till these girls have got to scream for someone to help because they're scared. These girls don't come back out their house. They're scared to go to school. And when they're going a few days later to school, they're coming across a group of these men who are now taking photos of them, who are now openly making lewd remarks, sexual remarks, and taking photos of them. Us as men and women of the city of Liverpool will do everything we can to protect the innocence of our children, and we don't give two F's about what this child's religion is or what that child's colour is. It's a child, he's from the city of Liverpool, and they're getting protected. End of. You're going to get the media coming in saying this is far right and this is that and this and that, when it's not. It's just not.
But this is what I wanted to ask you, Darren, and I'm just going to play slightly devil's advocate here, right? Is because as far as I know, paedophiles or predators, they come in all shapes and sizes, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that the people of Liverpool are more angry because it's coming from, and this is just playing devil's advocate, because they're non-white people, or is it generally because they are concerned? Because the thing is, the reason why I say this, right, and again, I'm just trying to understand the full picture, is that every time I see situations like this happen, right, I feel like sometimes it's easier to blame these immigrants as scapegoats for a pre-existing issue. So when we actually look at paedophilia or child sexual abuse in this country, this is institutional. This is something that runs as far as the 60s, right? From the care homes, from social services, from the MPs. I've been down this rabbit hole, and it's a very, very dark rabbit hole. And I feel like these migrants are very bad, from the grooming gangs, absolutely disgraceful. But if we're going to really target this issue, we don't target this issue from the bottom up. We target it from the top down, because that's where it's really happening. So this is what I'm really trying to understand, because I feel like sometimes people, they have more anger when it's non-white people doing it to white children compared to white people doing it to their own children. If we're going to target pedophiles and child sexual predators, we target all of them. And we don't base it off of color or because he's a brown man. But then you've got Jimmy down the road who's been noncing kids and nobody's ever said anything. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
like, that's really the main point that I'm saying. So do you
I
think
know,
that the anger...
I know exactly where you're coming from, but the amount of paedophiles and nonces that are English, that are of white colour, that get their houses burnt down, get their doors kicked in and get moved out the city is huge. Just because it's not being splashed across the media, you aren't seeing it. You know, there is loads of incidents where people of white colour have been targeted for being paedophiles. You're just not seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this isn't just happening in Liverpool. This is happening up and down the country, and it is what it is. You've got to face the facts and stick with the reality here. The only reason the media have jumped on this is because it got violent.
Mm-hmm.
If that would have remained a peaceful protest, it would have been okay. But you've got pro-government, pro-government protesters like Antifa, who deliberately come into the city in the busloads, shipped in from all over the country to make this a situation that it wasn't. Liverpool has never, ever been anti-immigration. It's always been anti-paedophiles, anti-nonces, and anti-government. And it's in the government's interest to use that narrative that it's a far right thing that's going on in the city of Liverpool, because they know quite well Liverpool is very anti-establishment, especially the younger generation who are anti-government, anti-police, and anti any sort of state-run curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got the protest. At the protest, you've got mothers and fathers who are really, really concerned about the safety of their children when they're letting their children go to school, because there's numerous accounts of men of whatever colour targeting the children. And when the protesters got a little bit over the top, when the police started using their strong arm, then a nice group came along that's anti-police and started joining the protests and making it into an anti-police, anti-government protest.
Infiltration, yeah.
The initial protest, it weren't to go there and cause, it was there to be very loud, get listened to. The police need to start using the numbers in the right places and preventing any more children from feeling insecure and scared. That's what it was about. The media, Then on top of that, you are going to have the people coming in that are proud to be Liverpool born, that don't like seeing illegal immigrants coming in the back door, being housed, being given phones, being given the best medical services, being given food on a daily basis, whilst Liverpool born and bred individuals are suffering right round the city. Do you understand?
But
They're
this is what I
getting
wanted
evicted
to
out the
ask you.
homes, getting evicted out the homes where the council's saying we can't pay your rent because it's too much. But then on the other end, you've got full hotels full of men. Now, we get told by the mass media that it's women and children coming from Ukraine and this, that, and the other, when in reality, there is thousands of men flooding the country, getting the best accommodation you can get, getting the best medical services you can get. And this isn't being about racist. This is about, protecting your own, protecting the people born and bred in our city. Why are we being given second class help when you've got these men coming into the country illegally? These aren't families of women and children who are suffering and need looking after, because if they was, they'd be embraced, they'd be loved, they'd be cared for. But these are men, and these men are at an age and at a fitness that are ready to go into war if need be. It's definitely nothing to do with race. The media have always had the influence across the masses. They always, if they've got a narrative and they want to spin that narrative, they're very good at spinning the narrative they want out there. But you've got to get onto the streets of Liverpool and look what is going on. And as I said before, they're not getting targeted because the colour of the skin or the religion or the culture. They're getting targeted because they're targeting children and women. That's it. It's nothing to do with you use a Muslims or use a Pakistani men. It's not a Tommy Robinson mentality. Do you understand? It's not that type of mindset, and it never will be. I've had comments after comments. Tommy Robinson's been saying this for years, and look now, no, he hasn't. Tommy Robinson has been targeting brothers of Islam and women of Islam, deliberately targeting them due to his personal experience when he lived in Luton. And he's held that hatred towards that community for a long, long time. All of a sudden, he's changed his narrative in the last few months for whatever reason.
Yep.
But what we're doing, what we speak about as Liverpool born and bred Scousers, which is full of immigrants from right round the world, whether it's Somalia, whether it's Pakistan, whether it's China, Jamaica, Ireland, it doesn't matter. Liverpool born and bred are raised on immigration. That's what makes Liverpool City so unique and powerful in its own right, because the majority of Scousers come from immigrant blood.
Right.
That protest was absolutely nothing to do with the influx of immigrants. It's gone that way because in Liverpool, there's loads of different people with their own ideologies, and that protest gave all them separate individuals with them different ideologies the opportunity to come and voice their opinions publicly. And that's what happened. It went from a protest to protect the children on the streets of Liverpool to an anti-police protest to an anti-government protest, and then it turned into, because of the media, an anti-immigration protest. When, as I just stated, Liverpool is built on the back of immigration.
But this is, so first of all, that's perfectly explained, because you've given a lot of context there, and again, it makes absolute sense. And my views are, I agree. I personally believe that immigration has become out of control here in Britain. We don't know who we're letting in. We do have certain people that are coming in with the wrong mindset, and unfortunately, there are people that are suffering because of that, especially the women and the children, because they are the most vulnerable in any society. It's the women and the children who are the most vulnerable, who are the biggest targets from predators. But at the same time, for me, I always like to look at things from a deeper perspective. Sometimes we tend to tackle the symptoms rather than the disease, and we never think about, why do we have a huge influx of men coming into this country? Why are they here in the first place? And when we go down that rabbit hole, what we realize is that we actually have a huge part to play in that too. And I always say to people that complain about immigration, Don't take it out on the immigrants. Take it out on the leaders, and I'll tell you why. Because it is the leaders who are causing these people to come in the first place. They are the ones who are not enforcing strict border controls. They are the ones who are running around talking about refugees welcome when they're not being specific as to what type of refugees, because not everybody is a refugee. There's a difference between an asylum seeker, a refugee, a legal migrant, and a illegal migrant. But essentially, when you come with a blanket statement, refugee welcome, they're thinking, yeah, the doors are open. Again, people from Afghanistan. The only reason why people from Afghanistan are here in this country is because we've been bombing theirs for the last 20 years. And we have been funding it. £37 billion in taxpayers' money was sent over to fund Afghanistan, which they lost. Taliban has taken over. You know, same thing with Iraq, which is where my father is from. Yes. Same thing with Syria. We've sent strikes to Syria to destabilize their government. So we also have a part to play in this as well. And I feel like people who don't have a brain cell, they will sit there and they will see the immigrants as an easy target. You know, it's these people that are taking our jobs. But do you ever sit there and think, why are they here in the first place? Let's tackle it from the roots rather than the stem. You know what I'm saying to you?
Look,
And this is where the conversation needs to be had. You know, why are these people here in the first place?
You're right in what you're saying. For example, if I was in a country that had been bombed to bits and I was in some of the worst conditions you could ever be, and I heard that Great Britain was the place to be, I'd be heading to Great Britain. And the governments and the authorities have basically let it be known, if you land in Great Britain, you will be looked after. People are coming from countries where £200 is like £1,000. Do you understand what I mean? So you've got to start. There is plenty of immigrants that are coming for a better life, for a better education, to get their kids and their children out of traumatic situations around the world, predominantly caused by the West. When you're looking at Syria, when you're looking at Iraq, when you're looking at, all them lands that have been infiltrated by the Western politics, if you like, they've been destroyed when they haven't played ball. The majority of immigrants that are in this country come from them parts of the world. And in my eyes, they're more than entitled to be here because our government and their affiliation to other Western governments have deliberately destroyed everything about their cities and their country. They've got loads of rights. But what you're seeing now with NATO and the way NATO is starting to sort of move this immigration around the world the way they want it. We have been swamped with men. These are not families. These are not young children. These are not, these men are ready. They're not coming here poor. They're coming here, they've got clothes. They can carry the bags. They're all... Do you understand what I mean?
I get where you're coming from.
These men are landing on our shores for a reason. And there's only one reason why you're going to put thousands upon thousands of men onto these shores and let them in and feed them and house them in the best conditions and give them the best mobile phone devices and rent full hotels out to the sum of something like £10 million a day to house these individuals. Do you know what £10 million a day could do for the people of this country? You've got schools closing down because the electric bills aren't getting paid. You've got thousands upon thousands of people going to food banks because they can't pay to feed their own children. And then all from nowhere, you've got these powerful men that are getting fed like the kings. It's all to do with the powers that be. It's all to do with the immigration policy of the government. You've heard them kicking off about Albanians. That's just distracting us from what the real situation is here. There's thousands of Albanians in this country that have come in legally. But there's a lot come in illegally due to the criminal records they've got. They can't travel to this country due to the criminal records.
But you know what you just said, yeah? Sorry to cut you, but you've raised a very, very interesting point. You said that the way that they are dealing with immigration now has changed. Now, as far as I know, this whole thing about putting them up in hotels is a new thing to me. Because I used to know quite a lot of illegal immigrants, right? And they never used to put them in hotels. They used to put them in hostels where they used to have to share the room with another man. and they would get like £36 a week. This new thing about putting them up in hotels, from what I know, is a very new phenomena, and it does seem like there is a agenda behind this to specifically pee off the wider community, because to a certain extent, and I want people, even to my audience, to look at this, taking your emotions aside, taking your biases, your prejudice, whatever it is, just dealing this from a logical perspective. This country is going through one of the worst economic crises it's gone through. Right? People are generally struggling. Is it conventional to have people come in and spend millions of pounds housing them in a hotel whilst there are people who cannot afford basic necessities? Is it logical? No. And if we were to flip this back to our own countries, we wouldn't want the same thing to happen in our own countries. In my own country, we barely have tourists, yeah, because they're too scared to come, because we're very, sometimes we sit here and we complain about Britain, but if we were to apply the same rules to our own country, we would actually have to be quiet, because my own country, their immigration control, there's no hello, welcome to the Home Office. It's guns and they're putting you in a cage. In my country, our border control is not like this. You understand? So people need to understand that there is a valid point in terms of these situations. But also, I'm here to, again, expand on those points and get to the root cause of it. Again, the constant interfering in other people's countries, which is causing them to be here in the first place. You know?
Well, I'd say NATO have got a lot to do with what's going on right around the world right now. We're all distracted by looking at what's going on in Ukraine and between Ukraine and Russia. And that's what they're using. They're using that as a way of why the immigration is flowing this way. When in reality, we've had people based in France for years trying their hardest to get to this country. And it's simply because it's easy. The minute you land in this country and seek, the registration as an asylum seeker, you're given money, you're given accommodation, you're given everything you need to secure a better and decent life. But amongst them real, legitimate immigrants, you've got hundreds, if not thousands, of men coming in under the label as an asylum seeker, when in reality they're being placed here. Now, they're being placed here over the last year or 18 months for a reason. You can see you can see the unrest in the country. You can see the civil unrest brewing left, right, and centre. You can see protests for this, protests for that. It's boiling point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Me, in my mind, feel that the men that we're dealing with now that are being housed in these hotels are a silent army of NATO, and they're only waiting for the ready for when the civil unrest does go. Don't forget, it's like every country, what goes into severe civil unrest that go against the governments. The majority of the authorities, the majority of the policemen, the majority of the army, whatever you want to call them, they switch on the government too. They're going to need someone to come in and contain the civil unrest if they start implementing what I feel they're implementing.
Well, now you're going really deep, and this is the thing, what we're witnessing is only what's happening on the surface, but there is deeper stuff going on in the background, because essentially, in order to almost promote or impose your power, you have to keep the society distracted, especially when the power that you're trying to impose is dark. Because I don't know about what your views are, but there's a lot of filth that's being taught to our young children, that's being promoted left, right, and centre.
It's all the same thing. It's all
right.
the same. It's all the same thing.
For us to not speak out against this, they need to keep us distracted. They almost treat us as if we're like little kids. Here, hold a toy, go play with that, whilst I do what I've got to do. And it's at the expense of us tearing each other down when we really sit down, because this is what I try to do with my platform. I've sat down with a lot of people from black nationalism, white nationalism, the right. I've sat with Jewish people, I've sat with Zionists, I've sat with as many people that I ideologically disagree with, and try to find a common ground. That's how, because realistically they want me and the Muslims to fight with everyone. They love that. But I decided to sort of break this pattern and say, let me sit down with my so-called enemies, yes, and let me have a conversation. Let me really understand why they're thinking the way that they're thinking. And 9 out of 10 times, what you'll find is they're misinformed just as much as I've been misinformed. What I've heard about them, what they've heard. Sorry, am I still here? Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's the way, yeah.
Yeah. So like 9 out of 10 times, what I've heard about them and what they've heard about me. Sorry, I keep on getting a call. So for me, I try to break that pattern of feeding into their narrative, because everybody here has a part to play in it. And what I find, Darren, I don't know if you agree with this, is they love to play on our emotions the most. That's what gets us riled up. This is like the main thing, especially when it comes to women and children. And when people think our children are being abused, our women are being abused, that's what's going to get the men out of their chairs. And I feel like this is the main thing that they specifically latch onto to get people riled up and get people stirred up. And you need to have level-headed thinkers who don't jump the gun straight away. You know, don't jump the gun, because when you jump the gun, you make matters worse. And this is why dialogue is very important, because I've spoken to many people about this issue in Liverpool. Some of them are coming from the racist perspective. I'll be honest with you. They're all saying, look, we don't like Muslims. It's you lot. You lot are doing this because you're Muslims and you're backwards and rare. But obviously, speaking to you, I agree more with what you're saying, because you're coming from a level-headed, reasonable, and I think as a community, we should be reasonable. If people are reasonable to us, we should be reasonable to them. I don't like where we paint ourselves out to be victims all the time, because we're not. There are some bad people in our community, and we
Yeah,
need to call them out.
let me get in there. The division between, let's say, Christianity and Islam, it's not self-inflicted. You know, it's being created by the powers that be. You know, I've always said it, and I'll continue to say it. You've got to really admire the religion of Islam for what they stand for and the moral capacity that they hold, the moral compass. In the city of Liverpool had the first mosque in this country. That's
What's
the
his name
first
again?
mosque, the first
Something
mosque ever,
Quilliam. William
right?
Quilliam, that's his name.
Right, the first mosque ever in this country was in the city of Liverpool. The majority of the people that hate upon the Brothers of Islam are normally ex-offenders who's had a bad time in custody at the hands of Brothers of Islam within custody. The majority of Liverpool are very open and embrace the culture of Islam. There's full communities in the city of Liverpool of Islam, and they get along just fine with the neighbouring Christians. It's the governments that don't want us to unite. It's the governments that need us divided. When we're divided, we're less powerful. When we're united, they'll never be able to contain it. It doesn't matter what, you're always going to have the bad apples. You're always going to have the individuals that want to instigate and provoke certain outcomes for their needs. But it's up to the individuals. You know, I sit there and I've met with Muslim lads all my life. I've had friends who are Muslims all my life. I done most of my prison with Muslims. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's the outside people who are not within the community that believe what people speak about the city of Liverpool. We have a racist incident years ago. One, all of a sudden, the city's racist.
Mm.
The police up and down the country have always been racist. Not just Merseyside police referring to the toxic riots. I'm talking about the Tottenham riots and all this sort of. You know how racist the establishment is. They always have been. To start labelling the people that are being controlled by these establishments the same as them, you're dead wrong. Just because the governments may hold, extreme racial views towards certain cultures and groups and religions in this country, doesn't mean that people that live in this country believe in the same shit. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Of course.
Look, it is what it is. You cannot. I'll bring it back to the beginning of the conversation. You cannot label the protest outside Knowsley Sweets as a far-right protest because it wasn't. You might have got individuals screaming, how can you have them in there when our own people are on the streets, when our own people... That's going to come in any part of the country. It doesn't matter if you're in Manchester, Birmingham, London, Glasgow. It doesn't matter where you're coming from. If you've got people who were born and bred in a certain council district and they're not getting this, that, and the other, and then all of a sudden you've got hundreds, 1,000 men being placed in, top-notch accommodation, being given instantly medical, doctors, dentists, all this before you, getting placed into houses while you've got single parents being evicted. You're going to have that natural, hang on, what about us born and bred Liverpool men? What about us born and bred Manchester men, Birmingham men, London men? Why is our council just pushing us aside and looking after these illegal immigrants? Don't forget that, shout. These are illegal immigrants. They're not going through the normal process. They're paying good money to get put on a boat, come into this country, knowing quite well, once they land, they go through a short process where there's no criminal checks, where there's no real background checks done on them, and they're getting ferried round the corner. They're given a smartphone straight away. Them who are getting them smartphones are sending messages back to their people going, you need to come here. We are living a life of Riley. So it's going to continue. And there's going to be thousands upon thousands of individuals trying to get here, predominantly men who are ready to go into war at a shout. And the government are allowing it. They're allowing it to happen. And so you can't really blame the legit immigrants that are flocking to this country seeking a better life. You can't blame them. And as I say, this country, the majority of it is pro-immigration. Do you understand? The United Kingdom is not English no more. And once you get that old, messed up English mindset, the majority of the country are born from immigrants. The majority of us. So when you've got the media trying to label a full city as racist, or, we're a far-right city and we're racist and we don't like Islam and we don't like black people and we don't like this, they need to get onto the streets and look what Scousers are. Scousers are Islamic. Scousers are Christian. Scousers are of black skin, white skin. They are Pakistan. They are Chinese. You can't just say, oh, Scousers are racist, because Scousers are everything. They're every shade of colour. They're every type of religion. They're from all over the world. So to start just stereotyping a whole city to say it's all far right, the bottom line is, when you've got women and children under threat from men of any skin colour, it doesn't matter where you're from. If you've got a paedophile in the city of Liverpool on one of our housing estates and he attacks or tries to attack, he is burnt out of his house and he's sent on his way with police escorting him and protecting him away from the area. That's exactly what was going on at that place without anywhere getting burnt out. Unfortunately, the police started using their strong arm tactics, so the police got attacked. If the police weren't there to provoke a reaction with the reaction what they got, if it was anything, it was an anti-police protest in the end, where the attention shifted away from what was going on in Knowsley Sweets to the police and what the police were doing and what Antifa were doing, that were being protected by the police.
But this is the main point that I feel like we need to exacerbate on the far left and their agenda. Because what I find is the far left constantly love to gaslight a lot of genuine English people and their concerns. And they love to turn the situation, there's a term called race baiting. They do a lot of race baiting, where I've even seen a lot of English people hesitant to speak about certain issues out of fear of being called racist. And this is what the far left have installed in the minds of a lot of people as a beating stick. If somebody just merely talks about immigration, he's a racist. If somebody merely speaks about, English society, oh, he's a far right. And so they've gaslighted people into being quiet. And it's not just simply on the topic of immigration, it's on many topics. Simply, if somebody says, you know what, I don't agree with LGBTQ being taught to our children, oh my God, you're a homophobe. And so these are the tactics that they have used to stop people from having these conversations. But what they don't realize is that they are causing a lot of damage to actual people, because if nobody's going to speak about this situation, essentially what you're saying to us is to be silent whilst we watch our children get sexually assaulted and molested on these streets. And if we do speak about it, we're going to now be attacked by police officers and be labeled as far right. And I can see that. I can see that from the outside. And it's a very dangerous thing that they're doing, because essentially people are going to become so frustrated to the point where they don't care, and all havoc and all hell is going to break loose. And I constantly see this brewing. For the last couple of years, I've seen this brewing, and Tommy Robinson has had a key part to play in this because he's done more damage to the situation. He has literally done exactly what his puppet masters have told him to do. Start a race war between Muslims and English people. I want you to pump out as much lies as you can about this community so that you guys can continue fighting each other and everybody else can be distracted. And it's up to people like us to be able to put our biases aside and sit down and have a conversation about it and try to come with solutions, because it's becoming hectic at this point. Muslims feel like they're walking on eggshells. English people feel like they're walking on eggshells. This country loves to pride itself on freedom of speech and freedom of expression, but yet there is no freedom of speech, because I can't say certain things without being potentially prosecuted, and neither can you without being called a racist or an extremist or the rest of it.
I'm very vocal. I don't like what's going on with regards to what you mentioned earlier on, with what the children are starting to be taught, with the images that they're watching on this TV screen, with all this fucking, this gayness that's going on. I'm dead against it all. And the minute you start being vocal about that, you're a homophobic or you're a transphobic or this, that, and the other. It's exactly the same when you're standing up for your rights, when you're standing up to protect your youth, and you're going down this avenue that I go down. You come across like you're this, that, and the other. When you keep on mentioning English, you ask any Scouser that's relevant or has purpose from Liverpool, and they will tell you straight, we're not English. We're not English. Do you understand? The majority of us come from Ireland blood. We're from Irish. The majority of us, we come from immigrants, and our ancestors was treated just like the black people of the day. When black people couldn't go to A, B, and C, neither could the Irish. So you can't label Liverpool as a racist city when it's definitely not. You can go to 95% of the city of Liverpool, and they will not tolerate the bullshit that comes out of that Tommy Robinson's mouth. You hit the nail on the head. For over 2 decades, that Tommy Robinson has ran up and down this country insinuating and advocating that Islam is dirty, Islam is this, Islam is that. And you've got a very lot of naive individuals that were willing to listen to this individual. All of a sudden, this hateful, provocative, nasty person in the last couple of months has started trying to charm the religion of Islam. And you've got brothers of Islam that are willing to forget the destruction and the provocation that he's created for over 2 decades in this country. He was the leader of movements that was far right. You didn't see no one at that protest waving banners about anti-Islam or anti-black, and you didn't hear no shouts at all. You didn't hear anything to do with colour or religion coming out of anyone's mouth at that protest. What you did hear is immigration. And the reason they're screaming about this immigration is because it's illegal immigration. They're coming into the country and they're targeting the children. Why are they targeting the children? We do not know. It could be, a tactic to provoke, and they're getting the right reaction. But
Wow.
bottom line is, as I said earlier on, if you've got a group of white men stalking kids on the city of Liverpool, they wouldn't be chased or reported. They'd be cut up and hurt. Do you understand what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
know,
No, I can imagine.
Liverpool are in the knowledge that the majority of these men are coming from places in the world where, age limits and stuff like this is different. And, they can tolerate a certain amount of hang on. They need to get used to it. They need to understand the values of the Western world. But when it's coming in thick and fast, when you've got numerous schools sending parents, like notices saying, be careful with your children, this has happened to another child. When you're seeing on social media numerous parents getting scared because the girls have had to run away from this group of men that was trying to grab them. And it all boils down to, so if you look at Kirby, if you look at the district of Kirby, all of a sudden in the last 6 months, 8 months, you've had continuous occasions where young children and women are being intimidated, stalked, and having sexual gestures put towards them, as well as taking photographs of them. And as I said earlier on, this is in public places. This is in parks. You've got grown men sitting in parks where children are playing. These men haven't got their own kids. They're not taking the kids to this park. They're deliberately in these parks, looking at the women and children, intimidating them, stalking them. When these women and children are getting home, they're moaning to their boyfriends and their dads and their uncles. And there's only so much real men will take in the city of Liverpool. And it was time. And, it might have been the climax, that young girl who was 15 and the 25-year-old. But, there was other incidents on that day. You've got men and women trying to kidnap young kids. This is all coming on the back of what's going on.
But can I just say something to the comments, right? Because Jordan M said this guy is no different from Tommy, right? I don't know how long you've been listening for, Jordan M, but Darren G, I've been watching him for quite a number of years now, and his brother is actually a Muslim. And I think what people are missing, they're missing the point here. And this unfortunately happens when we allow emotions to cloud our judgment. What this brother is saying, which makes sense, is he's from the town of Liverpool. Yes? There have been illegal migrants. I'm not speaking about legal migrants or asylum seekers. We're speaking about illegal migrants, specifically young men, who are going around harassing young English schoolgirls. Now,
not just English schoolgirls. Let's get the English out of it. Remove the English. They're harassing Scouse schoolgirls, and it doesn't matter what the skin colour is. Right. These men aren't targeting just white Scouse schoolgirls. They're targeting schoolgirls, full stop, irrelevant of the colour. And you can't keep on reiterating English, English, English. That's a narrative that Tommy Robinson would fucking spin on a different direction. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And for this Jordan saying I'm exactly the same as Tommy Robinson, for my people that follow me, they will tell you straight, I have been targeting that Tommy Robinson for what he's been doing to the Islamic community for years. Mm-hmm. For years. I'm not unlike him, never will be anything like him. I spin Univision. I've been spinning Univision for years. I've always said when the Islamic community and the Christian community unite, they will be unstoppable. And I've always had that opinion. And the Brothers of Islam that's embraced me as at my company, I've embraced exactly the same narrative. So when you get little weird individuals like this, I'm not generalizing or stereotyping immigration. As I said, Liverpool's born and bred on the back of immigration, whether it's Irish, Jamaican, Somalian, Pakistani. Liverpool has got a very, very diverse culture and has done for years upon years. And that's where we say...
But can I just say something as well, right? Speaking from an Arab perspective, yes, where a lot of people, specifically from Algeria, which is where my mother's from, yeah? Algeria isn't necessarily a war-torn country. Yes, it has a level of corruption, but Algeria is actually potentially could become a developing country. And you do have a lot of young men as young as 15 in their 20s. And I have spoken to these young men. And I'm telling you lot that they're coming to the UK because they believe it's a free land where you can do what you want to do. The girls are easy. Yeah, I'm just being honest. The girls, yeah, all you have to do is have a conversation with them and they'll be in your bed at the end of the night. You know, you can drink alcohol, you can smoke your weed, you can do all these silly things because it's Britain. So let's stop beating around the bush. There are some very sick individuals, right, who are not genuine migrants. My father was a genuine migrant. Yeah. I know genuine migrants who were fleeing from war, who their homes were bombed, they were turned into rubble. Yeah. They have a right. We open these people. I will fight for these people to have the right to stay here. But when you have sick individuals, which do exist, coming with this filthy mentality that the UK is just this green pass to do what you want to do, and then little girls, like Darren said, regardless of where they're from, are being targeted, are being stalked, are being harassed. When are we going to sit there and say, you know what, to be fair, on that situation, you guys got a point. Let's stop victim blaming ourselves, because the more that we shrug the situation under the carpet, we look like facilitators. And even in the Islamic faith, we are supposed to fight and speak out against oppression. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, help your brother if he is an oppressor and if he's being oppressed. And the person said, how do you help your brother if he's an oppressor? And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, by stopping him oppressing. So when we have anybody, even if he's from our community or not from our community, doing this stuff, we should be the first to speak out against it. We shouldn't sit there and say, oh, you know, why are you being racist towards the Muslim community? Or, oh, why are you targeting our community? There's wrong people in our community. Our community is not perfect. I'm going to be straight up with you guys. Our community is not perfect. Our community is in a state because we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. So, like, let's stop gaslighting ourselves. Because, and the thing is, what I find as well, which really frustrates me, is it's a lot of these men who have the most mouth in these situations. When us as women, what you'll find is a lot of Muslim women will actually sympathize with these situations because we're women. We understand how these young girls are possibly feeling because it's their bodies and their chastity that's being violated. But what I find sometimes, it's the ones that are overly defensive on these matters are the men. And it's like, brother, sometimes you don't even understand how it feels because you're not a woman. So when these brothers come, and I understand they're coming from a good place, they want to defend the reputation of the Muslims, they want to defend the reputation of our community, but at the same time there has to be a level of wisdom when you're defending. These people have a point. This man is not Tommy Robinson. I wouldn't bring him here if he was Tommy Robinson, first of all. Yes, I wouldn't be sitting here so calmly nodding my head if I thought this person was on that, because you guys know me well enough to see who I've spoken to. I would already have kicked him off by now, you know, if that was what he was trying to say. This is why I brought Darren G on, to give us that alternative perspective, a reasonable perspective, which I don't think anything that you said is wrong, to be honest with you.
Well, you've got a powerful point where you said some of the men from your part of the world, where you originate from, see this country as an easy country and the girls are easy. I made a post about a year and a half ago, saying every 16-year-old girl in this country should be dressed as a Muslim woman does to protect the valuables, because we've got a mindset in the Western world where you've got 14-year-old girls slut dropping in miniskirts. You know, we've got girls going out on a Saturday night who are 18 with the cleavage out and miniskirts up the back and all this sort of stuff. Now, that's not their fault, you know, that's the way they've been raised. The society is educating them kids in that way. And that's when I can't stand people that try and spin a narrative towards someone who they don't agree with and label them as anti-Islamic, racist, or homophobic or transphobic. I'm straight as they come. I don't like men trying to become women and influencing the children to do the same. I don't like it. I don't like individuals that target some of the most peacefulest, inspirational individuals I've ever met from the world of Islam, and I've always defended my brothers who practice the religion of Islam continuously for years upon years. You shouldn't let weird, messed up individuals who have this ideology about a certain individual because he's white, because he's a Scouser and he's very vocal, that he's this, that, and the other, to put me in the same context as such a hateful and, provocative individual as Tommy Robinson. He's a far off the mark. This protest in Liverpool was not far right. This protest in Liverpool, its whole purpose was to protect the women and the children of the city that are being intimidated, stalked, and harassed by grown men. That's it. Now, if the men were from Ukraine and doing that, they'd be getting exactly the same treatment. Do you understand? It doesn't matter what part of the world they're from. The bottom line is they're coming from any part of the world. When they're landing in our country, in our city, they're targeting the children and the women. And in most Scouse man's eyes, it's the women and the children that are the future of that city. And the last thing we want is the children being damaged, because if we don't protect the children, we've got no future. And that's right across the board. That's it is what it is. That's not just on immigration. I've been very vocal about protecting the children for a long, long time, and I've been targeting a lot of organised crime groups that are dealing a lot of dirty, dying drugs and handing guns out to the youth to kill each other and destroy the reputation of our city. It's the same sort of thing. That's where I'm coming from. I'm protecting the children, because if we don't protect the children, we've got no future in the city of Liverpool. And that can be whether it's drug dealing, whether it's organised crime groups grooming them, whether it's paedophiles, destroying their mindset and their life forever. It's all one thing. Obviously, as I said before, you're going to get pockets of the city that are anti-authority, like the majority of the Scousers are, that are anti-establishment, anti-police, anti-immigration, and they're going to use these non-violent protests as an opportunity to push their ideology out there. But to generalise and stereotype the whole city of Liverpool as if we're all racist and anti-Islamic, you're blind. As I say, you go into Liverpool, you go into the communities in Liverpool, and look what you're surrounded by. There's every nationality in Liverpool, born and bred Scousers. So when you're saying,
I've been to Liverpool a couple of times.
When people are saying Scousers are racist or Scousers are anti-Islamic, go into Liverpool, go into certain districts within Liverpool, and the majority of that district is Islamic. Do you understand? You can't just say Scousers, the real Scousers, don't even consider themselves English, and they wouldn't even participate in that English mentality. This is England, get them out. Scousers don't participate in that bullshit. As I said earlier on, there's 95% of Liverpool-born people that would never, ever, ever engage with that hateful individual, Tommy Robinson, ever. They can't understand his narrative, they can't understand his ideology, and they would never follow suit. Do you understand what I mean? The pockets, as I say, some individuals in Liverpool are very anti-Islamic, but that's because they've been in prison and they've suffered at the hands of them. You've had a few incidents where, you had a taxi, you had a brother of Islam that's killed himself in the back of a taxi in the
Oh yeah, I saw that.
You have incidents like that. That's going to give the sheeple, the people that are a bit blind, a mindset as if Islam's this big terror religion, when in reality, at the moment in the whole world in its climate, it's the most peaceful religion you're going to get. And that fact, I get hated for saying that. I'll get hated for bigging up Islam. I'll get hated for, having a different thought process on Islam. I'll get hated right across the board. But the bottom line is everything I'm stating, I'm honest about, and I'm looking at it from a real angle, without any discrimination, without any, underlying fucking religious beliefs or racist beliefs. It is what it is. That protest in the city of Liverpool, outside Knowsley Streets, was nothing to do with far right. It weren't anti-immigration. It was anti-paedophile and anti-nonsense who were walking around our streets illegal in the country. That's just a byproduct of the fact that they're immigrants. As I said before, if you had a group, if you had a man living on a road in Liverpool and he was stalking kids outside the school, he would be rushed and hospitalised on the step and then moved out of his house under the protection of the law. It doesn't matter what religion you are, doesn't matter what skin colour you are, what part of the world you're from. If you start looking on harming the women and children of our city, you're going to get the same reaction. And if the politics and the powers that be don't want to implement laws or put the manpower on the streets to protect our women and children, then the men, the red-blooded men, it doesn't matter what the skin colour are, they will take to the streets and protect the women and children of the city of Liverpool. And that is the bottom line when it comes to that protest. You've got men and women voicing their opinion because they're sick to death of women and children being targeted by these men that are getting housed in £1 million properties, getting the best medical services, getting the best iPhones, getting fed well, when the majority of the city are going to food banks. They can't get in to see a doctor and they're being evicted. That's what it is.
Well, and I think, you know, he has a point, you know, if you really again break it down, because I've been to Liverpool a few times, because I used to live in a care home up in Derbyshire up north, and they used to take us down there. And you know, from what I saw, very beautiful city and very nice people. They got very interesting accent. I do like the Liverpool accent. You know, from what I've heard about Liverpool people, you know, they're sort of people that they like to differentiate themselves, like you've clearly stated, from the English identity, because they're Scousers. That, you know, this is who we are. And I think definitely for the genuine men, women, and children of that city who are concerned about the safety and well-being of their children, you can't really argue with that.
That's all
And
it is.
that's why I brought Darren to represent this argument. But again, to give a more different, to a wider perspective, there are concerns, because every time we see things like this happening, there are opportunists. You know, the far right will capitalize off of it. People like Tommy Robinson will capitalize off of it. And like you said, recently in the current years, Islam hasn't really been spoken about like that. You know, we've just been like, all this Muslim terrorist narrative is sort of drifted away. You know, and people are talking more about the Russian-Ukraine conflict, and the sort of the Muslim name isn't really being targeted of being spoken about. You know, because every other day it was a terrorist attack. Every other day,
it's still not. As far as you know, it's always going to be spoken about because you've got certain individuals within it, just like you have within Judaism or Christianity. You know, there's individuals that's going to always have the religion spoken about, whether it's positive or negative. But don't think for 1 minute that protest was anti-Islam, or you know.
no, of course not. Of course not. Of course not.
It's definitely not on that page. As I said, I can't keep on reiterating it, but the bottom line is it's simply a case of women and men fed up to the back teeth with the police not doing what they should be doing. They feel like they've had to get out there and be very vocal to what's going on within the city of Liverpool. And it is what it is, whether you like it or not. Right round the country, cities up and down the country are dealing with the same situations of young girls and women being targeted by illegal immigrants.
But can I say something about that, which I think people need to also pay attention to what Darren said about the police not doing anything, right? Now, as somebody who's grown up in foster care, right, I believe that there are two major corrupt institutions in this country. The first is the police, and the second is social services. And social services have a huge part to play in the systematic abuse of our children since the 1960s. Anybody that's got the time or the brain cell or the sincerity to research child sexual abuse in Britain, it is scandalous. Scandalous. Just the other day, they convicted a Metropolitan police officer who had abused, I think it was 36 people whilst being a police officer. 2 years ago, somebody sent me a database, right? This database includes, I think, over 1,000 officers from all across Britain and the offences that they committed, and the amount of nonsense charges, rape charges that officers were committing. These are supposed to be people that will serve and protect, and they're committing these crimes. So the thing is, this situation, like I said earlier, when it comes to the abuse of children in this country, it is a systematic issue. By us pointing our fingers at certain communities, we're only touching the iceberg, or the tip of the iceberg of this situation. This is something that is deeply, deeply institutional, right? When it goes back to the care homes in the 1960s in Wales and Ireland, these were care homes that were set up for young orphan boys. And the social workers, the foster carers were abusing these children. MPs, 2 years ago, they had 70 members of parliament who were investigated for sexual misconduct in office. MPs, people that claim to represent us, people that claim to abide and uphold the law, are being investigated for misconduct and sexual harassment in the workplace. But here we are, oh, this Pakistani, oh, this Muslim, oh, this white geezer. If you genuinely care about these issues, you go and research. And once you go down that rabbit hole, because when I started researching into this, my mind was like, I felt like my mind was going to explode. Like, the more and deeper I got into this rabbit hole about the sexual abuse of children, from the MPs to the care homes to football clubs. Yeah, you had football coaches who ran football clubs abusing young boys. So this is a very much systemic issue, and what Darren is highlighting here is that the police are not bothering to do their job. And what really scared me is when I started to investigate the grooming gang situation. I'll give you 2 cases which absolutely blew my mind, and you'd probably know the same as somebody that's dealt with the law and stuff. There was one situation where there was an elderly Pakistani man, and he had a young English girl under the age of 16 in a car park, and she was giving him oral sex. Police officers turned up. They saw what she was doing. They were doing it in the car park, and he said, "What's going on here?" And the guy said, "Well, can't you see she's sucking my private parts off?" And the officer walked off. Didn't once sit there and say, "Hold on, this don't look right here. This is a young girl giving a man oral sex in a car park. He clearly looks old. Can I take some details?" No, he just walked off. And then a second case had happened where about 5 Pakistani men took a young 13-year-old girl to their flat, and they gave her alcohol. As a young 13-year-old, she couldn't handle her alcohol. So she got quite drunk. They were doing this with the intentions of abusing her, and she started to make quite a lot of noise. So neighbours called the police and said, "Look, there's a lot of noise going on." Police turned up. Do you know who they arrested? They ended up arresting the little girl.
No,
so you walked in to a
it's
house.
It's all
you've
messy.
seen 5 men and a little 13-year-old girl, and the first person that you arrest is the 13-year-old girl. And that's when I realized there is some mad corruption going on here.
And anyone that harms the children in any way at all, it's deadly wrong. You've had that individual we've mentioned quite a few times that was targeting just the Asian community, the Pakistani community, majority of which are Muslim men, and he was deliberately targeting them when he was well in the know about white English groups of paedophiles that was doing exactly the same shit. He'd leave them out the picture but continue his narrative and his hateful streak towards the Pakistani grooming gangs, and he'd leave the English grooming gangs alone and out the limelight. Do you understand what I mean?
Absolutely. So I know I don't want to take up most of your time. I've got a few people with some questions. All these people are legit, no trolls. I don't do any of that. I know this brother personally. So I'm going to allow some people to come on and ask Darren G a few questions about some points. I know. I didn't even. I'm sorry, but these people, they're all decent people. They're not here to troll or anything like that.
Can I just say something about? You've got someone in these comments called Sandra Kelly, and she keeps on talking about me and Danny. Now, this is a long-term troll of mine. She's just
I'll get rid of her.
Individual. She pops up all over the gaff, spinning a negative narrative. So
I'll get rid of her. She's gone.
Yeah, she's just a weirdo. Best to get out.
Yeah, we've all got that one weirdo that loves us.
Well, I've got a handful.
I'm sure you've got a few. Okay, Fourth brother. Assalamu alaikum, brother. Please, can we just contextualize our points? And yeah, ask a good question, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum salam. And hello to Darren. How you doing, brother?
Are you okay, brother? I've heard you
I am,
all.
yeah. For some reason, my mic's just gotten very low, so I can barely hear you. But yeah, I get straight to the point. Obviously, I've tuned into a lot of what you guys have been saying, and obviously I do agree with it. For the most part, you know, abuse of young girls, vulnerable children, or whoever it is, is not on at all. I mean, obviously, what one thing what kind of irritates me, you could say, is the fact that I feel like people only, especially in this country, rise up when it's like non-white people who abuse children. And I heard your response earlier, and you said obviously doors get broken down and they get run out of cities, and that's all commendable. But the thing is, you don't see any protests, on this large of a scale when it's those same people who abuse children. And obviously, I don't like the targeting of like a specific community, and regardless, I mean, you keep mentioning the word illegal immigrants. Like, let's be honest here, brother. If we're fair and we're looking at this as a societal issue, a problem, because let's be real honest here. You're a man, I'm a man, and we can hold our hands up and we can say that men from all races and from all backgrounds, they abuse women if they get the chance. Not all men, but a lot of men would do, from every single community. So obviously, when you talk about, like, obviously the protests were, I feel like people got together and they got riled up because there was a buzzword. It was illegal immigrants, and illegal, and by that what they mean is non-white people. So non-white people were abusing children, which is wrong. And another question I've got, yeah, obviously that's one question, and the second one is that, is there any cold hard evidence? Like, I'm not disputing any of the claims, but I always want to verify, and it's a part of my religion as well as a Muslim. Somebody approached there's like a story that goes, somebody approached, I think it's the prophet, where, sorry, I can't hear you guys. I'm sorry. I don't know if I'm speaking over you guys, but I can't hear you at all. I might
We're
have to log
listening.
off
We're
and
listening.
log
We're
back on.
listening. Okay, I don't know. So, did you want to answer the first point of what he was saying?
Well, basically, what he was saying, all men, is what I gathered. All men are capable of harming children. That's what he said.
Oh, well, I think he said that statistically speaking, most child sexual abuse cases or rapes tend to come from men. But I don't know what exactly he was saying. If he wants to
I
reiterate
think,
his point.
I think he also said, when you're using the word illegal, basically what you mean is Pakistani men or something. Did he say? You know
I
what?
think some.
It wasn't really a question, was it? He was just voicing his opinion.
Yeah, to be honest with you, brother Fulfiz, that wasn't really. I'm gonna be honest with you. That wasn't really a question. Yeah, that weren't a question, my bro. Like, people, if you're gonna ask a question, like, make sure it's a question, not a statement. I understand where you're coming from, brother. But inshallah, like, let's get some serious questions. Salam alaikum, my sister T.
Alaikum salam, sis.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. Have you got anything to ask Darren G here?
Yeah, so basically, like, when you said to me you was doing your live, I came and I logged in and I see Darren G and I was like, no way! Like, that's my guy. Like, I've done Darren, I just want to say hi, love and respect to you. I'm a criminologist, so I like to research on, like, within that field. So I've come across a lot of documentaries and stuff about you. So I've watched you and stuff, and I just want to say, like, respect, you're a real one. Like, and I love the fact that you're both on a panel speaking about these important issues, from both different backgrounds and stuff like that. It shows that, we can come together and be amicable and discuss things.
Well, thanks for that.
Absolutely.
You're welcome, bro. Well, like, you know what? I'm actually like, I'm like, it's for me, like, it's mad that I'm speaking to you because I got mad love for you. Like, I know I don't know you, but I know a lot about you from the research I've done, and I was surprised when I see you on the panel. I was like, no way, my guy's on the panel. So I just wanted to say hi, really. I ain't really got a question.
All right, my sister. All right, I'm going to
Okay.
try and get someone on. But yeah, this is my sister T. MashaAllah. May Allah bless you, sis. Right. Brian Hull, you said you wanted to come on and ask a question. I didn't put you last because the brother said that he had connection issues and that he wanted to speak quickly. So Brian Hull, if you can come back on and hopefully answer a question. I don't know if Jupiter was also in the chat as well that wanted to ask a question. But the thing is, I think the main point, to be honest with you, has been highlighted in this conversation in terms of this is not coming from a, you can come on RSID, but just make sure you have a question. Yeah, I don't know why it's difficult for people to get a question out. So if you have a question, you can come on, like, you know. But
I'd
the
like
main
to.
point,
I'd like to address that question or the statement what the first lad made, but I can't.
go on.
I can't see the dialogue in it.
Which is one? The one
All
that the
right.
guy that came on earlier.
Big up, Darren G. I've got a three-part question, Darren, if that's okay. Firstly, I'm a 50-year-old white guy living in one of these travel lodges right now on a 174-roomed hotel. 174 rooms. I'm 53 years old, white English guy. 90% of these rooms are run by Afghanistan, Syrians, and Iraqis. There are no Ukrainians here. There are no women here. They're all men. That's my first question to you. So you're right with the Ukrainians
That's not a
thing.
question, Brian.
I'm using the part two question. So, yeah. Secondly, a question for you, because Tommy Robinson has got his figures all wrong. The majority of convicted paedophiles come child killers are white males between 25 and 55. Do you agree on that?
I agree on that.
Yep. Also, I'm sorry because I know a lot about your brother Danny. Is he a political prisoner now? Would you agree on that? Your brother's a political prisoner now.
I'd say when he reverted to Islam, it sort of damaged his prospects of being released on time, if you like.
Yeah. And do you think he'll ever come out because of that?
No.
It's a
I
shame.
think they'll be too dangerous every time.
Yeah, which is not, is he?
With regards to your first part, where you're saying you're in a travel lodge and 90% of them are from them parts of the world.
In Afghanistan, they're all single males, single men, no women here. And that's weird in itself.
Where are they from, mate?
Syria, Afghanistan, and Iraq.
And what have they all got in common?
Well, the one thing that really pisses me off, if I'm totally honest with you, every single night you see 30, 40 Uber cars delivering food. Every single night.
I'm not on about that. I mean, what have them countries got in common?
The war.
Right, they've all been obliterated by NATO and the USA and the West.
Yeah.
So, we've sort of, not us, but the powers that control us have destroyed.
It's England, it's Britain and the United States, isn't it? It's Britain and the United States that have done it.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. That's what they've got in common. What they've got in common is they've had outside forces trespassing on their land, killing families, killing children, obliterating whole cities. So I think if anyone's got the right to be housed and looked after and fed well and so on and so forth, it's definitely individuals from that part of the country. You have that part of the world. Sorry, you've got a point when you're saying there's no children, no women there. But how do we not know that there is women and children coming into the country, but they're housed in different venues away from men?
You think so?
But Darren, 1 second, Brian, 1 second. Let me put a spanner in the works here, right? Because I've looked into this. Put yourself in the family's shoes, yeah? The man is the provider, he's the worker. Are you really, and because I've had this argument before, are you really going to send your wife and kids to make that treacherous journey? Or are you going to place them somewhere back home, safe, and you go out and you get the money and you come back? Because sometimes people, they think, oh, why is it only the men? But realistically, if you think about it, sometimes that kind of makes sense, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, you're going to send the breadwinner.
Yeah, exactly. So send the men out, like, because I know a lot of people that like legal migrants that come here, you know, they work and they've got wife and kids back home, you know, and they just try to make as much money as they can here. They reinvest it back into their country, and it's all good. I think the main point is really sort of young men, especially like men in their teens, right? Where really and truly you don't like for you to come to England when you're not even established. If you couldn't establish yourself in your own country, then like there's something might be a little bit wrong with you. Like if you're a 20-year-old man and you've got nothing to your name in your own country in terms of you've never had a job in your own country, why would you then? It's like me trying to hire for a job, but I've got nothing on my CV, you know. So I'm not really somebody that's really here to contribute to the society, you know, because I work in a hospital and I work with a lot of migrants, and they're very the people that I work with are very hard working. So it doesn't make sense to come to a country with absolutely no credentials, and I think this is part of the lie that they're being told. They're being told you
No,
can turn up to Britain, say that
no.
you're a migrant, say that you're going through X, Y, and Z, and that they're just going to immediately house you. It's not that easy. I've known immigrants who have had to live off £36 a week and they've had to share a room with a next man. Now, can you imagine that?
Mm.
Like you know this out of all people, Darren, having to share a cell with another man, especially if you don't like that man, right? It's going to be murders every day. So, you know, that's the condition that a lot of these young men are going to put themselves in. So I advocate that these young men go and get some sort of good qualification in their own country, and I guarantee you it'll be easier. When you go to the Home Office, you apply for a visa. I am a qualified engineer. I am a qualified plasterer, and I can come to Britain and I can offer this service to you rather than coming here without anything on your
Zubaida,
CV.
it doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
gotta
And
But are
start.
they
Okay.
allowed to work,
Brian,
Zabida? Zabida,
Brian,
are
still
they
there?
allowed to work?
1 minute. Let Darren speak and we'll
Hey,
let, yeah.
Brian, on your
Yeah.
second part of the question, it wasn't really a question. It was sort of like a moan that these individuals are getting Uber taxis with food. How do you get your food?
Well, that is a great point. Hang on, he's just done me there. I've got no
I
comeback.
mean,
I've got no
Yeah.
comeback.
you can't
Okay.
start like
I've
insinuating,
got
oh,
no comeback.
they get
Okay.
taxis and they get Ubers with food, and you
But,
do exactly the same.
okay, Darren. Okay, Darren. There's no
Stop,
comeback.
brother.
There are no cooking facilities in these travel lodges. There are no. So, yeah, okay, you done me there, Darren. Nice one, kid.
All right,
He done me.
RSN, go ahead. What do you have to say?
Yeah, hi, everybody. Long time. Hi, Zubaida. How are you doing, my dear?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you very
Good,
much.
good. Hi, Mr. Darren. I don't
Oh,
really
you
know you,
well,
brother,
mate.
but it's nice to see you as well. At the same time, as we said, now there's a discussion going on, and it is actually productive.
That's it. What it's about.
Yeah, bless you, Lord, mate. Bless you, Lord. Now, there was something that Zubaida said just now, which I disagree. I'm not going to talk about religion and all that. I'm not interested in that today. Towards the end, then I'll ask Darren, Zubaida, you know what happened? You know why people come to this country?
Mm-hmm.
Because they've colonized us long beforehand. And then what happened is that there is people who are farmers who do not have anything. They come to United Kingdom because they didn't ask UK to go and give them the rights so that they can come back here. Commonwealth countries and things like that, nothing. But they are people who was not educated. They came here, they have worked as hard as they can, and eventually the children become Rishi Sunak.
Right.
But
that only applies to people from the South Asian continent and certain African countries, because, for instance, in terms of the Arab world, a lot of the Arab world didn't really weren't necessarily colonized in the way that the South Asians and Africans were colonized. So, for instance, a lot of Pakistanis and Indians can speak English because the colonization was heavy over there, to the point where they educated these people in terms of teaching them the English way. So it makes sense why we have a lot of Pakistanis and Indians, and they have the absolute right. I agree with you on that point. If you come and colonize us in our country and you've taught your laws and you've taught your language to
So
us,
pay the price then. So sorry. So if Mr. Darren, if you do not mind, now I just wanted to speak to Zubaida, and at the same time, if you can say something that I'm saying wrong. I live somewhere far east, yeah. Farish and all that. And I come.
What I like to say, what you just said there, mate. I'm aware of families of who came as immigrants and they worked round the clock. You know, it didn't matter how they were making them pay. They were working as much as they could round the clock to create the financial backing so their children could have an education and live a better life in the future.
Thank you, Darren. You understood
there's
exactly what I was trying to explain.
Yeah, there is loads of individuals whose parents have gone out their way, you know, worked themselves in the ground to get the financial backing so they can give their
Working
children
for 20 hours a day.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So they can help their children gain a better education, to gain the right employment, to live a better future.
So, Mr. Darren, can I ask you a question, Prof? If you do not mind, mate. Whose fault is it? Is it now? My question is very clear and simple. People coming from this side of the countries, yeah, that going migrants and all that, they were not given that chance, mate. The fathers couldn't afford it, so they are trying to come here to get a better life. What is their fault? And what happened is that they have got land, they have got few things. The father takes loans from people, send the children to this place, and then after that trying to make a better life for them. So what is their mistake? And this is also to Zubeda, my sister. Listen, now what is their fault? It is sorry, yeah. Back to you, mate. Sorry.
Okay, let me just answer that quickly. I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, and I'm going to be completely honest, right? I advocate for us building up our own countries. You know, for me, I'll be honest with you, like I'm a very historical person.
Can I add on to it after you?
Yeah. For me, I love history, and I love looking back at the golden age of Muslims. You know, if you look at the golden age of Islam, and the power that we had, and the way that our societies were beacons of hope.
No, but it's still strong today.
One second.
No, Zubeda, it is still strong today.
No.
It's a running country.
Wait, let her finish.
One second. Okay, because the Middle East at one point was a beacon of knowledge. It was a beacon of wisdom, right? We had palaces. Our countries
have you any proof of that?
Excuse me. 1 second, please. Just let me land. Yeah. So the point is, right? I advocate for us to rebuild that and rebuild our societies again. And there are certain parts of the Middle East that are doing that. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, these are luxurious countries. Dubai, if you look at, people pay money to come to these parts of the world. But there are certain parts, like where I'm from, like Algeria, where my mom's from, Iraq, where my dad's from. Algeria was colonized by the French for 120 years, right? So I'm looking at it like this. Algeria, from a population perspective, it has a very young population. Like Italy has a very old population. Like more than, like, I think like 40% of their population is old people. Algeria has a lot of young population. So here we have a country with a lot of young people who could potentially be the future of this country. We need these young people to stay in the country, not flee the country. We need them to stay and rebuild the country, because one thing I'm going to add on to that is what people fail to recognize is there is a little bit of a culture clash. If we're going to be serious about it, for instance, if you put a lion and you put a tiger and you put a gorilla and you put a polar bear in the cage, they're going to
put a Zubeda as well, said that.
They're going to fight, and one is going to overpower the other. And I feel like there are times, especially where Britain is becoming more and more liberal, when you have traditional people, specifically, let's just say traditional Muslims or even traditional Jews, coming here, sometimes we are victims of discrimination because there is a culture clash, right?
I agree, 100%.
Okay, so for me personally, I would like to be more in an environment where I am immersed into my own culture, my own people. This is why I have openly said that I would like to re-migrate back to a Muslim land, just because I can raise my kids in a Muslim environment where they don't feel like they're walking on eggshells. So as much as immigration is a beautiful thing, there are also pros and cons to it, especially in a country like Britain, where Britain itself has changed. Britain used to be a traditional country. Britain used to be a very traditional Christian Orthodox country with strong traditional moral values. Now you can identify as a frog and people will call you frog. You can identify as a pig and everyone's clapping for you. But with all due respect, do you know what I mean? So the point is, there is.
Zubeda, I got exactly what you said. Okay, so let me ask you something, please, And this is, as I said to you, I do not want to bring it in a Islam thing like that. I just want to. Now, today's date, this is Britain. Who is British running this country? And the country is based on the state, the capital, London. Who's the mayor of London?
Rishi Sunak. An Indian man, yes.
No.
No. He's the prime minister. You've
He's
got,
the prime
Oh
minister,
yeah,
darling.
Prime Minister. Sorry.
So
Sadiq Khan.
let me explain.
Khan.
Let
Let
me
me just jump in there, RS. Sid. Let me jump in there.
No, Darren, can I finish my statement, please, bro?
Yeah, go ahead.
If you do not mind. Yeah. So what
Statement,
happened
you
is
know.
this here now. What is happening is this here now. The London mayor is Mr. Darren. If I can speak to you for a minute, please, bro.
Yeah.
What's the name of him?
The London
Sadiq
Mayor,
Khan.
Sadiq Khan.
Sunak. Yeah, exactly. Richard Sunak. Is he the
What is
prime minister?
what is the point that you're trying to get to? Sorry, Ara said I'm a little bit
Let me
confused.
just
What?
jump in there on the back of what
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just said there, RS,
Go on.
please. It's like this, look. Years and years and years ago, every council up and down the land was British and English run. Here we are 20 years later. You might as well state, the facts are there. You've only got to look at them. The country is more Muslim than what it is Christian right now. You look at the councils from London right up to the Midlands, right up north to Oldham, Rochdale. They're all Muslim-run councils. The powerfulest seat in London is Muslim. So when you've got individuals still trying to scream that this is a Christian country, you need to go and reevaluate your assessment, because
okay. Can I speak now?
Majority of the power bases up and down the land are
Yeah,
Muslim.
but Darren, what about the House of Lords? They got Christians permanently in the House of Lords. Like, there's no Muslims in the House of Lords.
We all know, Mehmet, don't we, what the House of Lords is, mate? These just pay for that title, and the majority of them are paedophiles.
But they
100 facts.
overstand the House of Commons, right? We
Yeah,
can't put laws through without them okaying it.
Yeah, you're right. But at the end of the day, the way they've franchised councils, if you like, they've deselected councils can do what you want now. That's why
local government level, yeah.
Yeah, local government do. That's why in certain parts of certain cities, you'll have areas that are pristine, clean, bins emptied every week. But then on the other end, it's dirty and not getting looked after. That's the way the governments have let the councils run what they want to do. The point
We've always had it like that, haven't we? It's always been either Labour or Conservative local government, regardless of what goes on at the top of the ladder.
Can I add something onto that?
Let's say this. The majority of people in this country that engage with politics are of Muslim background. They are the ones that attend and vote. That's why you've got Muslim MPs. That's why you've got Muslim politicians basically running half of the country through councils.
But you know
that's what they're supposed to do.
They don't represent us.
Yeah, but that's what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be representing your community.
Yeah, but Khan, let's be honest. The Sadiq Khan.
The point I'm making, though,
no. All these MPs are sellouts.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter if they're sellouts; they're still Muslim.
Yeah, they are.
The point.
Can I just ask a question?
Let him finish. God, let him finish. One at a time.
Let me make my point, and then you can say what you want about it. The point I'm making is this: years ago, when we were children, most councils were run by white English politicians.
Yes.
Now, there's an awful lot of councils that are run by Asian.
Give us a number. What number? What number? You said an awful lot. What? Is two or three too many for you, Darren?
The areas, mate. Let's look at the areas. Let's look at Rochdale.
Oldham, Rotherham, Bradford, Manchester.
It's a handful.
It's not a handful, mate. It's bigger than what you've got up north.
Yeah, all areas that are mostly Asians live in are run by Asians.
But that's what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be representing themselves.
They're representing the Asian community, though.
The point I'm making is there is people that still think that this country is a Christian country when in reality it's a Muslim country.
That's bullshit.
No.
It's just a Christian country.
That's utter bollocks, mate.
No,
one second.
Why is it bollocks?
Wait,
because I already told you the House of Lords has got people, Christian, established. What are you on about, Darren, bruv? Do you not know how this country runs?
Yeah,
you don't know how it works.
Yeah,
do you think your local MPs got any say on how this country runs, or do the House of Lords make those decisions?
No, wait, brother.
Are you really caught up in the decisions of the House of Lords? Are you?
What do you mean?
Are you
Bro,
caught
listen,
up
I
in the
don't think
decisions of the
Darren's
House of
trying to
Lords?
say. Listen. All Darren's trying to say, yeah, which is true what he said. He's trying to say
No, it's
back
not
in the
true.
day.
I'm just pointing
No,
out
One
to
wait,
you that it's
second,
not
Khan,
true.
let her speak.
wait.
Khan, just
Listen,
let her speak one time.
take it easy, brother. Calm down.
Come
Listen.
easy. It's just that you can't
Khan,
lie
Khan,
and
No, but
expect
Khan, one
everyone
listen,
to
second, Khan,
not.
we can have a civilized discussion
Start
about this,
suggesting
Khan.
I'm lying. You need to
let me
open
speak
your eyes
first,
and
and
get off
then you can
your little
say what you're
poisonous
saying,
mindset.
brother. Yeah.
Listen to what I'm
Listen,
saying, Remy. The
I'm
bottom line
38
is
years
this.
old.
The
Like,
majority of the
I'm
people that vote in this country come from the Muslim background, and that's why they're secure in councils up
Nonsense.
and
That's
down the country.
nonsense.
It's
Right,
Can I
right.
say
irrelevant
what I'm
if
saying?
it's
Like,
One
irrelevant
minute,
if you're
people. 1
being
minute. Let me
Care
moderate.
Bear
Let me
things at
moderate.
the top of the chain. It's irrelevant. It's all about what's happening on your streets in your community. To suggest that this country is still Christian, you're stupid. You're
This
stupid.
Right.
country is a
Open your
Christian
eyes, mate.
country.
Khan, 1
Ignore the
second, Khan.
politics. Ignore the politics that you're referring to about the House of Lords. They pay for them titles. They're there because they're rich and the
Not
paedophiles. The bottom line is, when every place I've lived in the last 5 years have been Muslim dominated, and the councils have been Muslim run. And that's the bottom line. When you've got an old mindset that this country is Christian, is it? Do you see churches bouncing? Do you see churches packed out every
they're
Saturday?
empty.
In France,
Empty.
but maybe not here.
Empty.
I've got a question for Darren.
Right,
Did
1
you?
minute, 1 minute. Whoa, okay, let me
Z,
just
can you
moderate.
moderate? 'Cause
Yeah, I'm
I'm
gonna
getting
moderate.
out of
Okay, 1
control.
second,
Go
people.
on,
We've got a
Z.
lot of people on here, and I know that we're having disagreements, but let's do it civilly, okay? Now, I just
Yeah.
want to exacerbate on what Darren's saying, right? So, I think what Darren is saying is true to a certain extent in terms of yes, there are certain Muslim majority areas, and the MPs and the council members are Muslim majority because it makes sense. They're the representatives of that community. But in terms of England being a Christian country, England was founded upon Christianity, absolutely. But no, it's not a Christian country anymore. And
I
actually,
agree. I
and he
agree.
actually done. And
100%. The churches are empty.
they done recent statistics, okay, on the Christian community here in Britain, and they actually said that more people are actually turning to atheism here in England, and Christianity is actually dying out in Britain. It's
Yeah.
not even like before that there was like a couple million Christians. Now it's actually decreasing, and the numbers are completely limited. And I think, Khan, to be honest, this is a secular country, and secularism has got nothing to do with Christianity. So there is no Christianity anymore
Yeah, you're right.
in Britain.
is
So yeah, I
King
just
Charles a
wanted.
Christian? Is King Charles a Christian?
He
Does
says
that
he's a
matter?
Christian, but Lord knows what he's up to. You know what I mean?
All
These
right.
people say they're Christians and they're doing all sorts
Does
of
that
good stuff.
matter? He's or
He
he
got
ain't,
fiddled
bro. We're
with
talking
by
about
Jimmy
the
Savile, I
population.
think. So, I
Right.
mean,
Right,
he
before we
probably.
continue, I want Sister T.
Sorry, you're right. Is it Khan? You're right in what you're saying, mate. You know, based on what you're saying, it is a Christian country. It's been formed around the church for decades, upon hundreds of years. But what I'm trying to put across is, although you mightn't have loads of Muslims in the House of Lords and so on and so forth, what I'm saying is, this country is predominantly Muslim.
But it's not.
No, I think what Darren's trying to say,
Statistically,
because
it's not.
it's not a majority Muslim country, of course not,
No.
because
Predominantly.
80% of 80% of this
Predominantly
country
means
is
the
white. Wait, 1
majority.
second, Khan, please. 1 second, Khan. 80% of Britain is white, 20% are non-white. I think the Muslim population of Britain is less than 5%. So we're not dominating this country, but what you will find is you will have more and more Muslims entering politics. But those Muslims that you're speaking about, Darren, majority of them are actually, what I would say, this is my opinion, are Asian representatives rather than Muslim representatives, because the Muslim world is very dynamic. You've got Arab Muslims. I don't even think there's hardly any Arab Muslims that are involved in politics. It's more Pakistanis who are involved in politics because they're the majority of the Muslim community. Like the black Muslims are a minority, the Somali Muslims are a minority, the Arab Muslims are a minority. And lastly, not all of these guys, so for instance, Sadiq Khan, yeah, I beg to differ whether he's a Muslim or not, and I'll tell you why. He's out there promoting LGBTQ. What sort of Muslim sits there and promotes LGBTQ? Majid Nawaz. Majid Nawaz definitely ain't no Muslim. I takfir him on the spot. So some of these people that claim to be Muslims, what they'll do is they'll pick out the most airy-fairy Muslim and put him on the stand and say, yeah, this guy's representing Muslims, when he doesn't. And they do the same thing in America. In America, they've got a woman called Ilhan Omar. She don't represent
interrupt
us.
you, Zubida, if you allow me? Sadiq
Go on,
Khan
mate, go
did
on.
not get voted in as the mayor of London on the back of a majority Muslim vote. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
How did he get in then?
London is not majority Muslim.
All right, but how did Sadiq Khan become
By
the
the
mayor of London? He was voted in, wasn't he?
But I don't know who he had to ask
Hello.
to get there. That's not my business. I'm just
You know,
saying
you know,
the
you know when
Muslims
you
didn't put him where he is, and he don't owe nothing to Muslims. It's obvious by his behaviour. We'd be lucky to even count him as a Muslim, as on the
All
back of what Zabida said.
a minute ago, though, I heard Sabida saying that, you know, you've got black Muslims, you've got this type of Muslim, that type of Muslim, that type of Muslim. You've also got white Muslims. And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter whether you're white, black, or whatever. You're Muslims, the Muslims.
Yeah.
And that's you know, that I think people are missing the point. It doesn't matter whether it's that type of Islam or this type. At the end of the day, they're all Muslims. It doesn't matter what the skin color
No,
is.
no,
They're
no,
all
Darren, I have to correct you there. It does, mate. And it's a beautiful thing that you said. That's how it should be. We all should be Muslims. But unfortunately, even within the Muslim community, there are divisions. And the reason why there is because we have to
Huge.
differentiate. It's the same thing as the Catholics and the Christians, right? We do have sort of internal divisions in the Muslim community. And the thing is, if Islam says homosexuality is a sin, and then you've got a Muslim claiming to represent us, parading homosexuality, we as the wider community have a right to differentiate ourselves from him and us, because you can't claim to represent our religion, but go do you know what I mean, mate? So that's really what it's about.
Yeah, I know what you're saying there, but from someone that's not a part of the religion and observes the country he's raised in, to deny me the right to say that I believe this is now a Muslim country and not a Christian country, it's a bit...
No, you can say what you want, mate. I'm just asking you for numbers.
If
you said that predominantly,
you know what,
it's a Muslim country. I'm asking you, if predominantly means majority, how is that possible?
Listen.
Okay, let him respond.
You know, you can't believe the statistics that the government put out there. You can't believe them.
But Darren, where are you getting the basis that this is a? What's your criteria to say that this is a majority Muslim country? I think that's what they're asking for. How did
if
you
your
come
focus is life, not a knife, do you think you might alienate a percentage of your audience by taking a political stance? Do you think it might be better to?
What political stance have I took?
Well, I don't know, but I'd say mainly if you're going to target kind of the youth against anti-violence and knife crime, avoiding the whole Muslim Christian debate might be.
Well, I know what you're saying, but look,
I'm not criticising you.
Yeah, I know that. CalNAF UK is not just for Christians or Muslims; it's for the youth. It's not.
Okay.
It's not just to protect the youth of Christianity or the youth of. I've been dragged into this debate. I thought it was just going to have an hour with Sabida, and all of a sudden, I'm in this group chat, and I'm just getting dragged into this thing about.
Steer away. Steer out of the Muslim Christian debate.
I believe.
Well, you're in the firing line now, Darren.
Right. One second. It's like, no. The thing is, look, Darren. Yeah, I weren't trying to drag you into this. I specifically asked people to ask questions about what was being said. Unfortunately, with this platform, things can go from one end to the spectrum to another. It goes all around the houses. And of course, if you don't want to continue with the conversation, you're more than welcome to. We can stop it as soon as possible. But I think in terms of what he was saying, I think anybody that knows Darren, because I've been watching Darren for about a year now, and he has spoken about certain political things, which I actually think is quite positive, because, again, with the youth, right, eventually they're going to take a political stance, right? Me, when I was 15, 16, I couldn't give a damn about politics. Now that I'm 25 years old and I'm growing up in the world and I'm within society, I have to sort of analyze the environment that I'm growing up in. And I don't think Darren G is advocating for racism, bigotry, or anything like that. If anything, I think Darren G is advocating for unity. You know, he hasn't put down the Christian community. He hasn't put down the Muslim community. If anything, he's tried to build bridges, you know, with each community, you know, and coming onto my platform as a Muslim woman is evident in itself that he's trying to build bridges and communicate with the wider community. And it's quite unfortunate, again, that the people that are coming up are not actually asking questions. You lot are better than that. We've had multiple people on this channel who have different political spectrums, and we've been able to converse with him. I don't know if it's with Darren G. Everyone's trying to prove themselves to be a gangster, but you know, I don't know what it is. Like they just want to test the big guy, but it's not that. You know, if anyone
G,
that's listening,
can I now?
go on, my sis. I'm so sorry.
Wait,
Go on.
so no, the first thing I wanted to say, yeah, obviously that firstly, for me to come on a live platform, yeah, and openly say that I got love and respect for someone and that person's a real person, yeah, trust me, that person is a real person. And the thing with panels is, yeah, like you've seen from my experience the other day, people come on panels like, and they feel like because they're on panels, they can just talk in any way they want, not realizing that, you know, you have to be careful how you speak, and it's important to have respect for others. Now, I don't know Darren's stance on what he thinks of Islam or whatnot, but all he said was that back in the days, you know, there was more white English people who was within organizations, and now there has become more Muslims, and that's fact. What he's saying is fact, and it makes sense because Islam is the fastest growing religion on earth, so why wouldn't that be? And there's nothing, it's like, it seems like people want to jump on him because he said that, but he ain't said anything bad. Everything he said is actually facts, it's true. He ain't said nothing wrong about it. That, and
Yeah.
like you said, for him to be on a platform with you, you're a Muslim sister, you got a hijab on, do you know what I'm saying? For him to even want to come on here, you know that he ain't got a problem. It's not that deep. Like, he's here, he's talking, do you know? But it's like people always want to make it into something else when it's not. Like, we're just all here, we're just all children, we're just all talking.
Like
You know what, sorry for interrupting you, mate, but
Can I jump in, yeah?
Someone mentioned something to me, and all I've done is give my honest opinion. You know, for years and years, it's been labelled as a Christian country. It's still known around the world as a Christian country, but in reality, it's a Muslim country. It doesn't matter what politicians are stating or how many people are saying.
But Darren, I'll tell you something, mate. Yeah, trust me. If this was a Muslim country, every woman would be covered up head to toe.
Yeah.
In that sense, I don't mean in that sense. I know what you mean by that, but I don't mean in that. I just mean, we are. Well, look, we are. Just take me.
Yeah, let me know when I could come in. Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, in my eyes, the majority of this country is Muslim. That's just in my eyes. You don't have to,
Look, Darren. I think I get where you're coming from, but the reason why we're correcting you on this matter is because a lot of these people will start getting scared. Oh my God, it's a majority Muslim country. See, we told you the Muslims are taking over. This is what they're thinking in their head because there's already this narrative that Muslims are taking over. But on the ground, Britain is 80% white country. The only places where you'll see majority Muslim populations are in certain major cities. So, for instance, London is actually more dominated by black people than it is by Muslims. But places like Bradford, Rochdale, Birmingham, yes, that's where you will see a lot of white people and a lot of Muslims in these cities. But
I do see there, and all the Muslims that I'm seeing are not just black, they're not just Asian, they're not just white. It's collective, it's very diverse. The religion of Islam now is very, very, very diverse.
Yeah.
Can I get a word? Yeah.
Okay, go on full fizz. I'm going to let Jupiter come in and then we're going to relax because, Darren wasn't. The thing is, Darren, what I do, I'll show you some of my content, mate. I bring people on, I interview them, and then I open a door. I open the door for them to take questions, I'm not
sat here, trying to be an advocate or divide individuals. That's the last thing I'm trying to do. As long as
listen. I'm sure Darren can handle himself. I'm sure he's not shying away from answering a few questions. But anyway, earlier, sorry, I couldn't hear you well. And you're right. I was making a bit of a statement there going on. I just give me 2 minutes, yeah, and I will definitely ask my questions of you that I wanted to ask earlier. Simplify them so you understand them well. Let me just actually make a statement about what you guys were discussing earlier with Khan, and that was, how did Sadiq Khan come into power? It could possibly the Muslims voted him in, possibly. But what I'm saying is. And I draw a parallel to how, Barack Obama became the president of the United States for 8 consecutive years. And obviously, there's not a majority black population in America. So the fact that he came into power, you see what these governments and matrix or the elite or whatever you want to call them, what they tend to do is they tend to use these faces of Asians and blacks, of minorities, and they put them in positions of power so that they can start to implement and bring rules and regulations and take away rights. And the thing is, nobody criticizes them as much as they might criticize somebody else. So as where George W. Bush was bombing Iraq and Afghanistan, and he was getting criticized, Barack Obama came into power, and he was the black face that they put in front, and he was the face of diversity, and supposedly, you know, he won a Nobel Peace Prize. But what happened was that bombing intensified, that bombing tripled, quadrupled, and he bombed more nations, and he caused more destruction than even the George Bush who preceded him. So this is what they do. So the elite might have placed him in power. But anyway, let me get back to my two questions that I wanted to ask you earlier, and I'll make them as simple as possible. One of my questions is there any hard evidence that these illegal immigrants, as you call them, first of all, are they all illegal? And is there any hard, concrete evidence and you know, I don't know, police reports that this rape or this, you know, this abuse is actually taking place? That's my first question. Real hard evidence, or is it just, you know, false information and lies and manipulation, as there sometimes tends to be? My second question is, why, like, listen, you care about the kids, I care about the kids. Now, if a Muslim commits a rape, or if a Muslim's a groomer, I will stand side by side with you, and and we will tackle the situation together. I don't care if he's white, black, brown, Muslim, Christian, Jew, whatever. If you're abusing children, you're abusing children. And what my second question is, why the selective outrage? My second question is, why such a protest only when it's illegal immigrants? And we know what everybody means by illegal. So let's be real here. Anyway, those are my two questions.
Well, on the first one, you know, you're asking for hard factual evidence. You're never going to get it, are you? Because the police are not dealing with it, and that's why you're getting protests. Simple as that, mate. On the second one, I forgot what you said, to be honest. What did he say, Zabida?
He basically said
what I said was hold on, Zabida. What I said was, why this selective outrage? Listen, if you're caring about the abuse of children, you don't care. You don't care if it's a Muslim who's abusing. You don't care if it's you don't care if it's an illegal, as you love to say, illegal. You mentioned it many times during this interview. Illegal. Like if somebody's abusing my kids, I'm not looking at that background. I'm not looking at whether he's an illegal. I'm not putting him into a category or a box. I don't give a damn if he's white, blue, black, brown, illegal, legal, transvestite, whatever.
Okay,
I'm
I understand, brother. I understand.
Who's being selective here? The protesters or the media?
Well, the protesters, because it was the protesters. Listen, I don't know much about the protest. Yeah, Zubaida's brought it to my attention.
One at a time. Let him answer.
The protesters and saying to the media, right, highlight this and spin this way. The reason I'm using illegal at the end of it is because the media are using immigration and making it sound like it's immigration all over the place when it's not. It's illegal immigration. Do you understand? It's not about the colour or the skin, and we're not selecting certain groups or using certain titles. You know, we're not a movement. We haven't got funding. We're just parents of the city of Liverpool attending a protest that went a bit nasty because of the police provocation. That's it. We're not selecting what protests to highlight. That's the media. We're not spinning the titles.
Let him land. Brothers and sisters, let him land.
Do you understand what I'm saying? We're not saying select this protest and spin it around the country. That's the media. That's what they do. There's loads of incidents around Liverpool where there is other hostels that are housing sex offenders that get released from prison. You know, they're not illegal. These are homegrown nonsense that are getting released into the communities and placed into hostels facing schools. There's protests.
Yeah, but where's the protest? Where's the protest for them, Darren? Where are the protests for them?
There has been protests for them, but it hasn't been highlighted by the media the way this has. And that's
Yeah,
why
name the protest. You've got to bring me. You got to bring me the evidence for that protest. Then you've got to name the protest.
I'm not here. I'm not a solicitor. I'm not it's not. It is what it is. There was a place opened in Wavertree. It was opened up as a house to rehabilitate individuals that have got out of custody, the majority of which were sex offenders. There was a major protest. It got smashed up. The media weren't all over it. You got a few lines in the Liverpool Echo. That was it. All of a sudden, because this has happened and the media have picked it up, that's why we're not spinning no narrative. We're not just screaming because it's illegal immigrants. We're using the word illegal because the media are using the word immigration as if it's immigration right across the board when it's not.
Right. Facts. That makes sense.
Can I ask you a question?
Okay, well, one second, my sister T, because I need to sort of switch the dynamics, right? So I'm going to let Jupiter speak. Now, again, I just want to give Darren the context of me. I'm not echo chamber, so I actively bring opposition to this channel to challenge them. I don't run from nobody. Yeah. So Jupiter, I was just debating with Jupiter earlier. Actually, Jupiter is actually, I don't know if she is still, but she's was a Tommy Robinson supporter. We both have completely different ideological background, but I will give her the opportunity to come and express herself, and she will be challenged on certain points. And this is what I like to do. Yeah, so I'm not bringing her here because I agree with her, but I bring her here so that we can have constructive dialogue. So Jupiter, and I'm going to let Chris come in, who's much more right than Jupiter. Yeah. So Jupiter, I know that you've obviously seen what's going on. So what is your interpretation of this situation in Liverpool?
Okay, so I know from various people, I know there's someone in the audience even who actually lives up that way, and I know for a fact that it was locals. I've heard a lot of people saying it was locals. I am aware that there were some patriotic alternative people that did go up to Liverpool, but I don't know if they lived local or not. But the fact of the matter is, it wasn't a far right protest. It was something that happened with locals, and yeah, it's something that I think that you're going to see kicking off all over the country now. I think this is something that's likely to happen again and again and again until the government start listening. That it might be months away from now that the next one happens. It could be weeks. I don't know. But now it's happened once. It's likely to happen again. And this is because social media, people can use that to actually get across to each other what is actually happening, because our media is lying to us. It's been lying to us for a very long time, and people have been wanting to get out their feelings. And what happens is the media even trawls the internet and only picks up the stories and then that they want to narrate out there. And so people, for example, when Darren was speaking a minute ago, he actually said that they only pick up the stories of when it's an illegal immigrant. They don't pick up the stories of when it's a paedophile in your local community. And he's absolutely 100% right on that point, because in British culture, if you were to go back, you would see whenever there was sex crimes against children, you would see people banging on the side of prison vans and screaming outside of the courtrooms when they were going to prison and stuff like that. You would, if the local community knew somebody was a paedophile, they would threaten to burn them out, if not burn them out, so that the police would have to remove them. This is something our culture has always been against. It's something our culture has always been afraid of. And then to find out on a mass scale what the paedophilia and the grooming that has been going on, and we're talking about established paedophilia as well, right through the board, it is something that has made people very, very angry. So I understand where he's coming from for all of that. I do disagree with him on his opinion on Tommy Robinson. I don't believe he's a racist, but I feel that is a separate subject, and that would just detract us from the question that I want to ask. What I wanted to ask is, I heard you say, and I want to double check in case I misheard it, that you think that Western women should dress like Muslims. Did you say Muslim women?
I've said that in the past, and this is what I mean. what's going on in the current climax with regards to the danger to young women, I think it's important that they don't put their assets on display to encourage them dirty individuals to alleviate towards them, if you understand what I mean. It's I don't see why 16-year-old girls should be running around the streets with do you understand, with the breasts half out, with skirts up the thighs, because that's 100. Just encouraging these dirty individuals to target them, and that's what I meant by I'd appreciate if 16-year-old
girls. As a female, I can understand people saying that maybe our society has allowed for things to become but we need people to be a little bit more modest, I think, around children especially, and the influence that the media's got with the videos and stuff like that.
But if you're a 21-year-old woman and you want to tart yourself up and go out and have a good time, you're free to do so. But when you've got 14, 15, 16-year-old women being encouraged, kids actually being encouraged by media, by music, by everything around them to dress like the 21, behave like the 21, I think we've got a huge problem, because there's a large portion of girls suffering like sexual attacks on themselves, partly due to
but I want to be very careful here the way that you word it, because I hope you're not excusing the perpetrators for what they're doing.
No.
He's not saying that.
I'm coming from the angle of, they're out there, the monsters are out there. They are going to attack girls, and the girls that are looking more open to that sort of attack, they're going to attack. All I've tried to say when I'm saying that is, girls, protect yourselves. Basically, dress like a Muslim woman who's hiding the most valuable things women can possess, and that's the private life. That's what I was insinuating in that comment.
Facts.
Okay, so I could agree with more modesty, but I don't think we should be saying that they have to dress like Muslim women. That's ridiculous.
Well, I don't think he means that literally.
That was my way. I think that's my way of that. You know what?
To be honest with you, the Muslim woman is with all due respect, the Muslim woman is the definition of modesty. I mean, people have different versions of modesty, but the Muslim woman is literally covered from head to toe.
Yeah.
And I think what Darren is trying to say is
this is going to go off onto another bit of a debate now, but the schoolgirl in Liverpool. Hold on. The schoolgirl in Liverpool wasn't dressed.
Darren, listen, yeah.
She wasn't dressed.
Okay, let she speak, Jupes, because she was waiting.
Darren, see you're speaking, yeah. Like, we're understanding what you're saying, yeah, but sometimes things. People like twisting lot. Like you're not saying, from my understanding, he's not saying that women should put hijab on and wrap up and niqab and cover it. He's not saying that. What he's saying is dress like. So basically, try to wear like loose clothing, something maybe that covers your bum. Something that don't really expose your breasts. It doesn't literally. I don't think he literally means like wrap up like. So let's just be clear, because we want to just make that clear.
I think he already established that. I didn't need you to clarify. He answered for himself.
All right, cool. Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Well,
so he
did you know what, your questions were good. You basically agreed with me on the fact that it was not a far-right protest. You don't agree with me that Tommy Robinson's a racist. I don't think I called him a racist. I called him a hateful preacher, which is completely different from a racist. He's always proclaiming he's got black friends. All of a sudden, he's on the scoreboard with the Muslims in the last few months. He is he's a slippery snake. I'm not hating on you because I'm not hating on you because you agree with him in some terms or whatever. That's just the way it is. That's the way society is. When it comes to the second question, where I've put a post out there a year and a half ago saying, I wish that young girls would dress like a Muslim woman. It's simply, I'd rather have a society where young girls are covering up their valuables instead of putting them on display, especially when we all know society is full of predators and monsters that are willing to do anything they can to harm young girls. All I'm trying to say,
I can kind of understand where you're coming from, but the point I wanted to follow up with is that young girl that was outside that hostel wasn't dressed provocatively. She was in school uniform.
Oh,
So
yeah,
we
I
do
know
know
that.
that these people will attack, even if you're dressed modestly. We do know that rape can occur in other countries, even where Muslims are fully, covered. So we must be careful that we don't.
Right, but school's only 7 hours of the day, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, they go home from school, they get changed. What are they wearing once they've been changed? You know, I'm not saying that young girl changes into anything provocative. But what I'm saying, in the city of Liverpool and in loads of cities up and down the country, you'd have got 14, 15-year-old girls dressing like the 21-year-old adults.
Yeah.
Oh no, I agree with you that, and I do think that our media pushes sexuality onto children at a younger and younger age.
That's what I'm indicating.
I agree with you on that point.
There's a lot of.
I just think that we have to be very careful that we're not trying to tell Western women that they can't have their own culture. I do agree that the liberal culture has gone way too far. I do agree that the pop music
Yeah, but
and
the
the
thing is,
videos that go along
we
with
said
it are
this before,
disgusting.
British culture is rooted in modesty. If you look at the way the traditional British women used to dress 80, 90 years ago, they were very modest. So,
Yeah, I agree.
you know, it's
I
not
agree.
about, like you've clearly said, it's this liberal culture that is now infiltrated. And the thing is, you know, we have to protect our children at any cost. And part of protecting our children is not allowing our young daughters to go out with their breasts out. And what sort of parent would even allow their child to walk out like that out of protection and jealousy for their child? And because we live in this liberal society, people sit there and look, we have to look at this from a logical perspective. If you've got a young girl, 14 years old, and she's dressed to appear older, right, by showing off her breasts, putting makeup, are we going to be now surprised when an older person may possibly approach her and think, oh, she looks quite old, she looks like she's in her 20s?
No, I agree with you, Zubida, but I think we have
that's
to be
the point.
but I think we have to be really careful with what we say, because as women are taking a big hit from the misogynists at the moment, right?
Yeah.
No, well,
100%.
listen, it still doesn't give an excuse. So let me follow up with that. It does not give any excuse for any filthy individual to now approach or disrespect these young women. But the point is, we as parents should also go out of our way to protect our daughters. Because the thing is, Jupiter, this world is like a jungle. You might find certain parts of the jungle that the animals are vegetarians and they ain't going to strike you. But you might end up on a certain part of the jungle where there's tigers. So we have to beware of those tigers. As much as we sit here and we say we think this world is some sort of fairyland, there are predators no matter where you go. So out of protection and prevention, we also have to take certain precautions to protect ourselves.
Yes.
We're not gonna get every rapist, unfortunately. Even if we locked up 100 rapists, there's still gonna be 100 more. Unfortunately, this is a society that we live in, right? So even though there are 100 rapists that are locked up, let's at least protect them from those rapists that are still out there, you know. And part of that is making sure that they're clothed properly, you know, in a way that won't leave them to become targets. Because I mean, this day and age, the style and the fashion that a lot of these young women are wearing is absolutely ridiculous. Even you as a woman, to be honest with you, what sort of self-respect do you have for yourself when you're going out there showcasing your breasts, which is one of your biggest
100%.
assets? What do you think men are going to view you as? They're going to think, all right, she's trying to show me something.
So I think it's all relative to your surroundings. If you're on a beach or you're in your backyard sunbathing, I don't think that's a problem.
That's slightly
So
different.
I do think it's relative.
I know Jupiter is trying to defend those little bikini videos that she put out before. She's like,
no, I'm saying that with British culture it's relative. But what I do feel is that we have had sexuality pushed onto our children at a much younger age now, and that is something that I would agree with you on. I would also say, you know, that there are appropriate places that you don't go dressed as a slut to the office kind of thing. I get what you're saying on that, but I just think that we have to be very careful, because when we're getting schoolgirls approached in school uniform, there's no excuse for that.
No excuse.
When we're getting 90-year-old women raped in their care homes, there's no excuse for that.
Absolutely.
You know? So we have to be very, very careful what we say, because it gives an excuse to the mindset of the rapist that it's okay and we can rape women because they asked for it because of how they were dressed.
No,
you know
absolutely not. We're against that. I'm telling you, I know T personally. If me and T saw that filthy individual approach that 15-year-old girl, I'm fly kicking him. I'll go up to him and say, what are you doing chatting to this little girl? I'm punching him in his face. What are you doing talking to this little girl, you little tramp? I'm telling you, we would physically put hands and feet on him. Yeah.
100%.
So trust me, like in real life, these situations, this is why a lot of these things can't really run in London. You see London, where it's like a very multicultural place, like you don't really hear of like grooming gangs in London, because as much as you might have criminals in London, when it comes to that sort of stuff, we don't play these games. Like I remember
Yeah.
when I was 15 years old, and an Afghani guy actually from Afghanistan, he sexually assaulted my friend. And me and a bunch of other school kids, we were all 15, 16 years old. We literally took him to the park and we literally beat the crap out of him to the point where he was black and blue. Yeah, like when I was 15 years old. So I've personally, and many people actually diss me, say, why don't you call the police? Why don't you call the police? At the time, I didn't really care about no police. Maybe now I would have acted differently, but at that age, even as a 15-year-old with other 15-year-old boys and girls, we made sure that this person was dealt with, because these sort of games we do not play. But I
Remember
wanted
that
to
guy?
introduce.
Remember
I just wanted
that
to
guy
just
in London?
one second, sister, just so that we can wrap it up. This is the last guest, because I know Darren's been bombarded quite a lot, right? So this. I think this is a good guest to put it off with a bang. So Chris Mitchell here. He is from the further right end of the spectrum. So he is what you would refer to as a ethno-nationalist, somebody that believes Britain should be majority white. And many people would class him as far right. People would class him as a racist, a neo-Nazi, to that extent. So as you can see, I'm validating the point that I have a lot of different people from different political spectrums on this platform. But I do it so that I can challenge these ideas instead of going back and forth. So we have our last guest here, Chris, who is the most, what people would say, extreme end of the political spectrum. So, Mr. Chris, what have you got to say about this?
Thank you for having me on. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, the guy said like we're a Muslim majority country. We're not. We're about 5 to 6%. The real problem is it's white people that are being replaced. The indigenous people are being replaced in our homeland. In 1991, we was 95% white British. In 2001, was 86%. In 2011, 81%. And now this year, we are now 74% of the country. So with current trends and statistics, it shows that we are going to become a minority in our ancestral homeland. And that this is a major problem. I don't hate anyone of colour, but I do believe we should reserve the right for our own people in our own country.
So basically, Darren, what you're saying, yeah, is that in the year 2060, when the year 2023, there is an Oxford professor who says that in the year 2060, white people will become a minority in Britain. So right now, Britain is 80% white, 20% non-white. This guy is saying in 2060, British people or white people will become 50% of the population, and 50% will be non-white people. So basically, the white race is essentially dying out here in Britain. My argument to that
all
is,
across Europe, in fact, it's all across
so
Europe.
my argument to that is white
And
people
we're
just
only 9%
okay. One second. My argument to that is it's not because of immigration, because we can't. There's not enough immigrants that are going to outtake the white race. Unfortunately, in England, a big problem with a lot of English people is that they're not having enough children. Right? They're having too many abortions. They're on the pill. They're wearing condoms. I mean, us as Muslims, alhamdulillah, we have 5, 6 kids. We breed, because what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to have loads of kids. Unfortunately, the reason why this statistic could be possible, because it's not even been confirmed, is that a lot of English people are not having enough children. I think, Chris, you can also agree with that. You've also agreed with that before.
Yeah, that's a factor. Immigration is also a factor. The fact that more migrants have more babies as well. It all adds into the factor, don't it? Look, we've already lost Birmingham, London, Leicester, Luton, Slough. We're a minority in these major cities already and towns.
Do you want me to come in there?
Go on, Darren.
Well, let me put this across to you, mate. It's I can only see one race being diluted at the moment, and it's the white race. And why is it being diluted? Because white women are having kids with other races left, right, and centre.
That's another factor.
Yeah?
That's another factor. Yeah.
Right. So what you've got the white race being diluted by every other race. You've got, now this isn't me being racist, this is me just identifying a point. You've got black men sleeping with white women. You've got Asian men sleeping with white women. You've got every breed on the planet diluting the white race because they're procreating with white women. So that's a factor why, you've got to understand as well that when you're referring to white people, what do you mean? white Irish, white English.
Well, yeah, white English.
Huh?
England should be a majority English. I don't think we should be letting Polish into the country either. I think it should be a super majority English country.
But it's never really been a majority English country, has it? In the
Well,
sense,
yeah, not about 95% white English. It just in 30 years ago.
All right, well, I'm born in Liverpool, but I come from Irish stock. I come from Irish.
Yeah. If we had a DNA test,
am I classed as white English?
Well, it depends on your DNA test, doesn't it?
Yeah, it comes from Ireland. So at all those Irish blood individuals from up and down the country, would you class us as white English?
It depends what's on your DNA test again. Wait, would you class a black person that's born in England English?
Right. So is yours all about black and white then instead of religion?
Yeah, I'm not. I have a lot of respect for Islam. To be fair, I was on the Tommy Robinson side. To be fair, believing he's nonsense.
So the thing is, Darren, let me just break something down to you. Well, 1 second, Chris. Let me just break it down to politics, right? One second, Chris. 1 second. So that lady that just come on Jupiter, she's a Tommy Robinson supporter. As you've clearly identified, Darren, Tommy Robinson claims he's not a racist. His main thing is against Islam. So Tommy Robinson will have black and brown people. They're all about black and brown people. As long as you're British, you're welcome in. If you're Muslim, get out. This group that you're speaking to here, Chris, their whole ideology is about race. So as you clearly heard, they actually do respect certain things about Islam. But what they're saying is, we respect your Islam, just go practice it in your own country. They want Britain to go back to pre-World War II, where Britain was 90% white. And when they mean white, they mean either English, Welsh, Scottish, or Irish. They don't mean white Italian, white Polish. They want this country to go back to before World War II, where it was a majority white English country. This is what they want.
Yeah, I get what you mean now and then, but the problem you've got there is when your white power base decided to join Europe, they also decided to let Europeans into the country.
Yeah, I don't agree with the government. Our government sold us out.
Oh, basically, they also hate Winston Churchill, and a lot of them actually are quite pro-Hitler. So
I'm not pro-Hitler, by the way, just to get that out there.
Yeah, I'm not saying you.
What I'm trying to get here, Sabine, I'm trying to establish Chris's point here. You know,
well, I want a super majority white British island. That's what I want.
So you want a white UK?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, around not.
So that means somebody like me should get deported. Hold on, Chris. So basically, according to you, I should get deported. So basically, what they're offering is something called repatriation, where they give people like myself money, and so that I can go back to my own country. Yeah, but it's not enough money. If it was like $500,000, I would take it.
It's not feasible, is it? It's not feasible. In an ideal world,
Chris, you expect people, who were born here, like myself, I'm from Morocco,
we're getting deported, sis.
I'm British. You expect me? I've been born here all my life. I'm British. I'm westernized. And you expect for me to get? You would like for me to get deported back to North Africa? Is that what you're saying, brother?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
You know what, Chris? What would you say to all? So look, I come from Irish stock. Majority of Liverpool they come from Irish stock, Jamaican stock. What would you say to the Jamaicans that are born and bred in Liverpool?
Well, I'd like them to go back to Jamaica.
After they built your country, that's crazy.
Built our country, though,
oh yeah, basically.
Hey, what's your movement called, Chris?
What? Sorry, mate.
What movement are you part of?
Well, I'm not in a movement, mate. I was in Patriotic Alternative. I was in with them.
Patriotic Alternative is basically run by a guy called Mark Collette. Mark Collette used to be part of the BNP. Mark Collette is a self-proclaimed Hitler supporter. He is part of the far right. Wow. A lot of his members were ex-National Action. One of them is actually from Liverpool, our good friend Charlie Big Potatoes, who's currently in prison. That's why a lot of people, when they saw you, they thought you were Charlie. But Patriotic Alternative is basically a white nationalist movement who want Britain to be majority white. Chris was a part of the movement, but he's now left the movement. But he still basically supports a lot of their ideas. And apparently, Darren, Patriotic Alternative were actually down there at the Liverpool protest. This is what people are saying. This is why they're calling it far right, because PA turned up. Patriotic Alternative turned up to that demo.
Okay.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter if they turned up; they weren't embraced. I think I got a message sent to me off account. I got a message sent to me off an account, and you had some baldy-headed fella chatting poo with that patriotic flag. I think they were expecting me to put that across my story and have me affiliating to that mindset. But let me just tell you now, Chris, without trying to offend you or not, mates.
No,
You're going nowhere with that prerogative of yours, like.
No, I agree. I actually think England's lost. I don't. It's what I want, but I'm not going to get it on.
England's not lost, lad. England's in the right place. It's not even England no more. You know, it's changed its title a couple of times. It was the United Kingdom. Now it's the British Isles, isn't it? What one is it now, mate?
Yeah, it's lost, mate. That's what it is. England.
Nah, it's not lost. It's people like yourself that are lost who think that, you know, fucking individuals. I'm not trying to be offensive towards you, mate, but you've got to understand here, you know, let's look at Liverpool by itself. Within Liverpool, you've got all sorts of races and you know, born and bred scousers. For you and your movement to turn around and say they shouldn't be allowed here, they should be sent back to wherever.
Well, what do you think? Say for example, say for example, people like me and you, we all moved to Japan and we became the majority over the Japanese people. Do you think that would be acceptable to Japan?
What?
If us lot, all the white people just moved to Japan, yeah, and we were the majority in Japan, then the ethnic Japanese would become the minority. Would that be acceptable?
Yeah, but you can't.
Yeah, but Chris, I've explained to you multiple times. The reason why Britain, hold on one second, sister. The reason why Britain is the way that it is today is because of colonialism, Chris. We've explained this before, Chris, my friend. The reason why Britain has become a multicultural society. Let me finish. The reason why Britain has become a multicultural society is because your ancestors went around colonizing and bringing slaves to this country. Yes, through the British Empire. I understand. Look, there are a lot of things that I sympathize. You know this, Chris. And I don't care whoever says whatever they say about me. There are certain things that I sympathize with. I understand that you're a British man. You love your country. You want your country to not be, you know, overtaken by migrants. But at the same time, you're here because of your ancestors. Your ancestors went around colonizing half of the world, and I know that you're against your own government, and I know you're against that. But my main thing is, have some more children. Find yourself a nice English girl, yeah? Get married to her and get breeding, mate. This will fix your solution.
Get breeding, mate.
That is the plan.
Have some kids. You know, my mom had 5 kids. My grandma had 13. Allahu Akbar. 13 kids my grandmother had.
The Ottoman Empire colonized many parts of the world. Does that mean that Islam should be reduced to a minority state?
Islam can never be reduced to a minority because Islam's too powerful for that. Islam was a way of life which is supported by God. You can never reduce Islam to a minority.
That's one question.
Before I go, his issue. So, Chris, can you explain to me what a British man is?
A British man is a white person that's from either Ireland, England, Wales, or Scotland. That is what
yeah.
I think that's the end of the fucking debate, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, I think. Look, thank you, Chris, for coming up, mate.
Oh, thank you, guys. Much respect.
No problem, Chris, mate. Thank you very much. So, I think, to be fair, can we get like a round of applause in the chat? Because I think, to be honest, Darren has actually handled that really well. And I think, Darren, you're not the first, and you definitely won't be the last on the hot seat on this channel because, you know, we've had a lot of people. We've had other activists. We had Sasha Johnson, who's a black activist. When she came on, she had a bunch of far right people come on here, and just that got really heated. I've interviewed Shamima Begum's lawyer, if you know who Shamima Begum is.
Yeah.
I've spoken to other political leaders before. Not political leaders, sorry, political activists on this channel. So I've got a quite diverse audience and diverse panelists, and I give people the chance to hear what they have to say because you learn a lot that way. I'm sure you've probably never heard some of this stuff before, but it's good to know that these ideas exist so you know the way that society is. You know, to know that people have these ideals and that's the way that they think. For me personally, I'll just speak for myself. I need to know that this is how people are thinking so that I'm prepared and I understand the way that the world works. rather
Yeah.
than us pretending that it's all la-di-da-di. Britain's such a multicultural society. We all love each other. Well, that's
Yeah,
not
we
what's
got to be
happening
real
on the
about
ground.
it. Yeah, we got
Yeah,
to be real about it, man.
yeah.
Well, thank you for having me in. I've never been on a panel like this, you know, where you've got people with different opinions, but it's been good. It hasn't been challenging. It's just been a little bit awkward, but you know, I appreciate the opportunity, mate.
You done good, man. You done good. You done good, Darren.
And thanks for you
Absolutely.
as well,
Nah, man. You know what? Real recognize real, bro, man. I see you, man.
Absolutely.
Well,
Thank you so much, Darren.
We'll just finish off by saying goodbye. Thanks a lot. But you know, the whole narrative I come from is protecting the youth. The protest in the city of Liverpool was nothing to do with far right movements or racism or religion. It's simply a matter of local people standing up for the children, the women within the city of Liverpool. That's it. Let the media spin what they want to spin.
And that's good, man. I respect that. That's a good thing that you're doing, man. And the youth matters. They're the future. And they've got so much corruption around them right now. They need that help, you know?
Absolutely. I think is he cut out?
And the good thing with is he gone?
Yeah, I think his battery might have died.
The good thing with Darren as well, yeah, in relation to like roads and street, yeah, because that's where most of the youths are lost. Do you know what I'm saying? These rich people, their youths are going to private schools, getting chauffeured, like, so the people that are out in the hood and on the streets, yeah, they know who my man is. So when he talks to them, they can relate to him because they know my man. He's like, you know what I'm saying? He's like, he's what he speaks.
No, I listen.
Real,
When
you
I
know what I'm
first
saying?
saw Darren G, the first video that I saw was when he was speaking about the Muslims in prison, and when he spoke about you will never find unity the way that the Muslims are united. And I thought, right, this is interesting for a white man to speak like that about the Muslims. So I've done a bit of research into him. I looked into him. I tried to get him onto my show like last year, and we sort of agreed to it, but it just never happened. And then I thought, you know what, Liverpool's kicking off, best man to speak about it. Darren G reached out to him, I think yesterday, and he decided to come on. And you know, big respect to Darren, whether you like him or not. This is somebody that if you've actually listened to his story, he's been through a lot and he's seen a lot. And the fact that he's come out the other side, not worse, but actually saying, you know what, I want to use my experience to better people. All credits to him. And those that are hating on him are just jealous. That's one thing I realized with a lot of guys. Like, he's OG gangster. You see, you little kids this day and age.
My man they could write a movie on my man's life, brother. Mark, trust me. See,
For
my
real.
man.
I'm surprised you knew who he was, though. I told you I was getting him on T.
No, do you know what? When I see him in the thing, I was like, no way. Like, 'cause I've done research on my man, isn't it? Like, I know quite a lot. Obviously, I'm not going to speak online about shit, but like the research I've done, obviously, it's out there anyway. But I'm not even going to go into that's awkward, isn't it? But he's a real one still. Like, I know.
Absolutely.
That.
Like, he's OG gangster. You know, he comes from back in the day when people were actually doing real stuff, not these little kids this day and age sitting there just talking rubbish. But either way, he's trying to teach the people how to come out of that. And you know what? Big respect to Darren. I think he handled it well. It's very unfortunate that some of the brothers and sisters are not able to really conduct themselves appropriately. Like, people, I just want to make something clear. This is my platform. This is my reputation. If I'm bringing you onto my platform, that means I'm vouching for you to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And when you're out here acting dumb, you're making me look dumb as well. Like, with all due respect. So please, like, respect me the way that I've respected you by giving you a platform and giving you an opportunity to speak. You know, so please, like, you know. Anyway, any closing thoughts, Sister T?
I think, do you know what? Like, that was a surprise, and it was quite a good conversation. Like, I know, like, things might have went all over the place and stuff, but it was really good. It was interesting. I think he handled himself in a good way. And I think, like, I don't know. Do you know what? Like, it was nice. Like, I enjoyed the experience. It was a nice podcast. Like,
Yeah, look, my sister. This is what I do, my sister. You know this. All the other extra stuff that everyone else is on, I'm not on it. Like, for me, I'm trying to have real conversations with real topics that are relevant, that impacts every single one of us.
Real conversations with real people.
Thank you very much, Acton Man. I really appreciate that. And guys, for those who are not subscribed, make sure you do subscribe. You know, we've had a lot of good conversations on this channel. Some of them I might put out so that you guys can revisit them, where we've had some very saucy topics, some very deep political discussions. But yeah, shout out again to Darren G. Honestly, like, he's really done well on this platform in terms of, you know, some of the things that people brought forth to him. Zubaydah to spend more time. I will try, bro. You know me, before I was doing live streams every other day, but you know, gotta get life out there. But yes, PA means patriotic alternative. No, I'm not going to put the show on private. The show is public for those who want to revisit, who want to watch. Other than that, guys, have a good night, and hopefully I'll speak to you all soon. Peace. I'm gonna call you.
All right, bye.